We're Arctic Monkeys. This is Don't Believe the Hype.
That rock and roll, eh? Ladies! That sound means it's the end of the round. Time for the bonus question. Cheers, dude.
That man just yawned.
We're gonna call it,
Don't Believe the Hype.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Don't Believe the Hype, the podcast dedicated to covering the entire discography of the band Arctic Monkeys in chronological order. My name is Justin, and tonight's episode is Series 5, Episode 4, where we will be diving into Arabella, track 4 off the AM album. But before we get into all that, let me first introduce my co-host and the creator of this podcast. He's the man with a 70s head, a modern lover's heart, and rumor has it, a stash of organic cigarettes wrapped up in his cheetah print coat. It's Dan. Welcome, Dan.
Hello, yes, I have been described as a modern lover on many an occasion. For better or worse. Not the kind of modern lover like Miles. Not that kind of modern
Oh,
lover.
I hope not. I hope not, Dan. I might have to rethink my position on this podcast.
I actually, speaking of poor old Miles, and hello everyone. Hello. I'm very excited about this week because this is one of my favorite tracks, one of my favorite Arctic Monkeys tracks, I think. But both lyrically and musically. But before this, I was just, cause I've been going back and listening to some of our Shadow Puppets ones that me and you have done just to check how they are and stuff. And I was listening to Everything You Come to Expect before, and it was such. We had a listener who said who's a contributor. I think it was Simon Love. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Who said he didn't want to. The only reason he wasn't a subscriber was he doesn't see the value in the Shadow Puppets because he hates Miles so much. And I think we said before, like, that, don't worry, it's just a matter of slag off fest. And that episode was just pure us slagging off Miles for the first half of it.
No.
It was really
I don't even
just
remember that. Oh, no.
It was just us digging out Miles for ages. And the Dracula Teeth one as well, but it was because of that interview. But it's funny. But no, we are here for Ariella Bella. And what a song to have written about you, right? It's one of the sexiest songs. I'm just ending it there. Just one of the sexiest songs. That's dot. That's all I'm saying. To have a song about you that's like just how sexy you are and how much you drive a guy insane is, because there's no ambiguity with this one. There's no with the other track. I feel. I mean, it's an interesting song because lyrically there's very little to say, but there's also so much to say. It's kind of in this weird place. But it's there's no, like, with the, One for the Road, it was kind of like, oh wow, is this actually him being insecure? This is just a song about wanting to fuck someone and how amazing they make you feel, and there's no ambiguity in those lyrics at all, and there's no wondering if I don't think there's really any ambiguity about her wanting you either, is there really much? I mean, you could say he's just hoping to, I suppose, but I think it's I think he's pretty clear that he's with her.
This is like because we recently did Sweet Dreams Tennessee for the subscriber content as well, and it's kind of like the opposite end of the coin, where that one was just a straight up love song, not much too much to dig into there, but this is kind of like the other side. It's like this is just the straight up lust song. You got the straight up love song and the straight up lust song.
Yeah, and but still in both, like, he's doing some interesting kind of metaphors and stuff in the lyrics. But we it's true, because with the Sweet Dreams one, there wasn't a lot to talk about the lyrics, but I think we got quite emotional. That's what that kind of song is. But this one is straight up sex.
It's not going to be emotion today, listeners.
No emotion. No, it's not. It's not that kind of emotion anyway. But it's interesting. There are some interesting lyrics, and there is a lyric in this that I think throws back to a very, 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 very early Arctic Monkeys lyric. So we've got that.
Okay, that's interesting.
A Beneath the Boardwalk lyric.
Is it? Ooh, okay. I don't think I picked up on that. Now that I remember, I'll have to check my notes. I'm excited.
Potentially is all I'll say. Okay, I have an idea. If we both agree on that's what that lyric is about, obviously. So save that for the lyrics. There's a teaser for you, eh? There's a teaser. But we do have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. in this episode. We're pre-recording this, so we don't have any new patrons to thank yet. But when we do,
we're just at that point where we're breaking into the new stuff is coming out next week, and so we're right at that mark.
Yeah, so I think around kind of hopefully around I Want It All and Number One Party Anthem, we'll be able to slip some thank yous in, obviously, if we get any subscribers.
Hope so. I
hope so. But to all of you that already subscribed, as ever,
you're dynamite. Thank you.
You're dynamite, yeah. But it is, it's funny that. No, I forgot. I was going to say something then, and I completely forgot what it was because the clip took it out of my mind. I did have a thought.
It was funny, whatever it was.
It was, but it was funny. But the clip just completely eradicated from my mind. So we'll move on from that. But this is oh no, that's what I was going to say. This is the 4th single, and now we won't have one for 4 tracks. We won't have one. We won't have one for a month, basically, another single. So we've had a run of 4 singles. So all the subscribers.
But we have one that's almost like an honorary single. One of those, it might as well have been a single. There won't be as much information and stuff about it, but I think it's one that people kind of hold as honorary type of single.
Oh, really? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, really? Okay, well, that's a tease for a couple weeks away
then. I know it. I think maybe you mean one because it was a big. Coming up in the next 4. Within
the next 4.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe it's.
Well, really, you just have 3 choices because the 4th one is a single. So.
Well, is it? What do we have next? We have I Want It All.
So it's I Want It All, Number One Party Anthem. Yeah. Oh, Fireside. Okay, no, I was thinking that. Okay. Well, then, yeah, that still stands. So one of those 4 is what I consider a kind of honorary single, even though there's no information.
I think I know what it is then, because it won't be next week, and you forgot about Fireside, and it won't be Mad Sound. So absolutely, I know what you mean. You mean it's like a sort of like a fan favorite type thing.
Yeah, favorite type of
Certainly, yeah. Well, I was going to be interested to hear your thoughts on that because I am excited about that episode, Number One Party Anthem, because I don't say anything. You've sometimes not been a fan of the melodic stuff as much as me, so it's going to be interesting to hear that. Okay. So I'm going to be interested to hear that. What you think of that one? So I'm intrigued. We haven't come across a song that you haven't liked yet, and hopefully that won't be today. But before we talk about our thoughts on the track, which we will imminently, and I'll find out whether you like it, shall we have a little clip of it?
Yeah.
Lips are like the galaxy's edge, and I kiss the color of a constellation falling into place. Yeah, my days end best when the sunset gets itself behind that little lady sitting on the passenger side. It's much less picturesque without a catching the light.
It's so hard to clip these up in under 30 seconds because I just want to keep playing them.
Yeah.
I really liked that performance, what I saw, and it's from Austin City Limits 2013. And for subscribers, that's the one I've chosen for our watch along of the song for the post show. We do a little watch along of a track, and I chose it for a couple of reasons, but I really liked that performance. Alex seems like he's vocally great. They're all having a good time. Everything sounds full. Nick's got a little bass up in the air on the video. He's holding his bass up in the air, which is always fun. So I selected that one for us to watch. So I'm looking forward to that at the end. So if you want to see that, become a subscriber, patreon.com/Arctic Podcast. I did notice this week that it changes it to patreon.com/C/Arctic Podcast. But I'm pretty sure if you just put Arctic Podcast, it takes you to it. That's just something that Patreon changes.
Are you sure that's not because you're signed in as a creator?
That's an excellent point. Now I seem foolish.
Might be.
and now I may have to go check the show notes that I didn't put the C1.
Well, yeah, I think either way it would automate because the people wouldn't be logged in. So
So I'll start pointing about that. Yeah, that is an excellent point that I didn't think of. So there you go. What an idiot. But what do you think of this track then, Justin?
All right, Dan. So you have no idea what my opinions are on this. So this is breaking for you and for the listener, for everybody. So what I will say is that
I'm worried.
I would say, Dan, I love half of this
Ooh.
song. So honestly, this song is kind of split for me.
Oh my God. What? This is
And
insane.
there are some critiques that I have alluded to surrounding this album that I think will finally start to pop up in this track for the first time. It won't be the last time it's brought up, or exclusively this song, but I think will start to pop up in this song. And there's actually some critiques that you have made previously about other tracks that I feel, for me, kind of pop up a little bit in this song specifically. So yeah, I'm kind of 50-50 on this one, honestly.
Well, wow, that's really surprising because this, I think, is a fan favorite, right? This is like a big hitter.
I think so.
I'm interested to know which parts it is that you're 50-50 on, because I just find, for me, when the album came out, this was one I constantly listened to, and I just fell in love with because I like the verses. I think lyrically it's phenomenally good. I think his lyrics are brilliant, and maybe some of his best, actually. And one of the lines in this is one that I've talked about. We'll talk about when we talk about the lyrics, but that I've talked about a lot in leading up to this. In the other series, I've always talked about this thing that Alex does, and there's lyric in this where he does that exactly. And I always cite that when I'm boring people at parties. This is the lyric that I cite about it. But I love the rock. I love the solo. I love everything about it. Yeah, I think it's a tight, cool, sexy song. So I am shocked. So I'm interested to find out what your critiques are as we go. Because I am shocked.
Yeah.
I really thought I was safe until next week. Because next week's next week's a song not a lot of people like, but I'll, spoiler alert, I will defend it. And partly there's one particular part of that song that I think is brilliant. Yeah, I'm shocked. I thought I was safe. I thought I was on safe ground before this week. I was coming into it.
Well, and also too,
and you've put a drone strike on.
Well, after two, you were saying like, well, this is one of my favorite songs, and I absolutely love this song. So I had to break it to you a little bit easy. But I will say, surprisingly, opposite of you, when this album first came out, this is one of my absolute least favorite songs on the album. And over time, it has gotten better for me. So initially, when the album first came out, I always skip the song.
Wow, that blows my mind about what other songs you're not going to like now. That's blown the door open now to what the possibilities are, because there's obviously, as we know, there's only one song on this album that I don't like. That really winds me up. But wow, okay, well that's interesting. We'll obviously be digging into that as we go. So that's an incentive to listen, to find out what. And please, if other people agree with this, I'd like to hear the kind of consensus, because I thought this was a kind of what's it called, an easy shot, like a, you know what I mean, like a kind of an easy goal, because it's a great song. But so please get in touch with us at arcticmonkeyspodcast@gmail.com or Instagram /Arctic Podcast. Is it at Arctic Podcast on Instagram? It is, isn't it?
Arctic Podcast.
DM me, and we always reply. Or if you're a subscriber, obviously you can comment on the video underneath and such. And can you comment on Spotify podcasts? I don't think you can. Oh no, you can. Yeah, people do, like, actually.
Do they?
We do.
Okay.
People do. Yeah, people do sometimes comment on the individual tracks, so you must be able to. Then because I found a load like a year late at one point, because I didn't know that was a thing and you could check it on Spotify. So I found a load that I had to reply to like way late.
I didn't know that.
So you can comment straight on Spotify underneath. I don't think you can on Apple, but you can on Spotify. Let's get into some information, shall we? So we can start after that talking about why you're absolutely wrong.
The information action ratio is the place to go.
No, all opinions are valid. We're not, we're not America. All opinions are valid. So Arabella is 3 minutes and 27 seconds long with 641.8 million streams on Spotify. So not obviously up there with Do Want to Know and Are You Mine, but 3 times last week, One for the Road.
Yeah.
And so obviously quite well. That's high, obviously. We if we weren't counting it against 1.2 billion or trillion, then we would
probably trillion,
probably trillion. So I think if we weren't counting it against that, it's bigger than most on the other albums, I would say. So yeah, obviously a big tune. So 3 times. Oh, sorry. The song was confirmed as the album's 5th single by the band and their label Domino.
Wow.
And impacted radio in Italy on the 28th of January 2014. So it kind of had a big impact in Italy, this song, which makes sense because it's the sexiest song, and Italy
it
is
does
nothing
kind of
if
make
not
sense
sexy.
for Italy.
So yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it, right? And the United Kingdom on 10th of March 2014. A physical 7-inch vinyl single was planned for release on the 28th of March 2014, but was ultimately cancelled.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, I wonder if there was a B-side on that that we never got to hear then. That makes
I was just thinking that, honestly. I was just thinking
because
that.
You wouldn't put a 7-inch vinyl out with 1 track on it, would you? There'd certainly be 2.
No, yeah.
Unless they were going to do that lame thing that bands do where they put just a live version of the same track on the single.
That would be really bad.
Yeah. So the song is 180 beats per minute and is in the key of D major. The song has been played live 343 times, making it their 18th most played track. So it's up there with the others. Firstly, on August 30th, 2013, at the Zurich Opener 2013. Don't know why I said 2013 twice, but I did. Switzerland. And lastly, on October 19th, 2023, at the Free Arena Dublin, Ireland, which was, of course, the last gig that we have seen them play. Arabella was played live at that Zurich Open Air Festival. And this was where they often played part of Black Sabbath's War Pigs during live performances of the song. And apparently the reason they did the War Pigs extension was to give time for Alex to equip his guitar for the solo. So you notice he doesn't play it with a guitar, and then he had to play a solo, so they had to kind of drag it out. So obviously some people will know. We will talk shortly about why War Pigs is put in there. If you know, you know. If you don't, you're in for a treat, I suppose. But before that, this is used. A lot of these songs are used in pop culture, so I thought, seeing as I'm talking about every week, we may as well have a bloody jingle for it.
Everybody's on a barge floating down an endless stream of great TV.
So now that is officially the sort of sample covers part is the only section of the show without a jingle. So pretty much. So although it's weird, we never had a jingle for like when we talk about the music and the lyrics. We just kind of go into that. We never.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's just.
I don't know why. I don't know why we didn't. I guess because we just wanted it to be free flowing, maybe. But the So if anyone can think of any for samples cover section, then get in touch. Let me know, and I will.
Well, we do have the ones where I guess we talk about our favorite lines and musical parts have their own. So
yes, I think that's
really
why we didn't double
that.
up. I think it was one or the other because but if anyone can think of a good one for the part where I talk about who's covered the song and who sampled the song, stuff like that, then get in touch via the mediums I previously described. But this song, Arabella, is used on Love Island again, Series 5, Episode 21, which I saw yesterday has launched. Love Island US has launched on Peacock, so that's to look forward to. And then this was also used, as ever, in Peaky Blinders, Series 2, Episode 6. I'm not being funny. Do I Want to Know, Are You Mine, One for the Road, and Arabella are used in Peaky Blinders Series 2, Episode 6. So I don't know what is going on in that episode.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
Where they could put 4 AM tracks into a show set in the 1800s or whatever. What the themes were of that episode that made sense for 4 tracks from AM to be used. But hey, if nothing else, the Monkees are making a lot of money off the sort of BBC at this point. So then there you go. But the song, okay, so for people that don't know, they sampled the song War Pigs by Black Sabbath. And before we kind of discuss that, let's have a little listen to the Black Sabbath version.
Come on! Come on! Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction,
sorcerer of death's construction.
God, I bet they were a great live band in the 70s when you off your tits at some kind of open air festival.
Oh, yeah.
I bet that was a time and a half. Yeah, so they sampled it. Obviously, that is exactly the same as the Arabella chorus, isn't it? So if you didn't know, yeah, they kind of just took that. And obviously, Jamie has his Sabbath influences. So in our pre-show album, we did the album Paranoid by Sabbath that features this song purely because it obviously links quite well to this track. And I think we've got sort of a theorizing that maybe like they had this kind of R&B aspect and then they fused that, like Jamie accidentally played the War Pigs notes in it, and that's why they kind of ended up doing it and having to sample it. But I like that it's like an official sample, because it's not like they just tried to rip it off. They were like, okay, we're going to use it and we're going to officially sort of take it,
It's weird to me that it's labeled as a sample because I always just think about sampling as a like it's very rare for a band to just play the same guitar lick and then just say, yeah, it's a sample. That's not very common. We talk about samples a lot in hip hop and electronic music.
Yeah.
So it's very strange.
Yeah, it is
actually.
unusual.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? This is why I kind of like it, because a lot of bands do take riffs from other stuff, and you can tell, but they've just got away with it. They changed it enough, so at least they kind of admitted that it was kind of inspired. They just like sampled it. But I tell you what, it is interesting because obviously we've talked a lot about this being their kind of hip hop album as well as being a rock album, and it's interesting that the only time they sample a track is while they're doing a hip hop album and sampling hip hop thing. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe they were like, well, you know what? It kind of fits. Yeah, because we're not sampling like a loop, but certainly hip hop tends to take rock riffs. It's funny because hip hop takes rock riffs and just samples it over and over again. So they've kind of done that, but as a rock band themselves, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But they could have just changed it slightly and ripped it off. So I'm proud of them for not doing that. They could have easily got away, I reckon, with doing something else with it and ripping it off. So at least they owned up, but no, I think it's a great. I think the Sabbath song's a great riff. I think it is a sort of great rock moment. So I think it works great in this song. But yeah, for those who don't know, go listen to War Pigs by Sabbath, and you will have your mind blown. And it's funny because in recent weeks, Alex has only ever sampled 2 songs, one official, one unofficial, and we've covered them both in the space of a month. Sweet Dreams TN, an unofficial sample of Theft.
That was like straight up stolen.
Yeah, but the only way we could theorize that it wasn't is that it's out of copyright or something because it was
domain,
so old. The riff or something, yeah. But and then this obviously War Pigs. So yeah, we've done them both recently. So let's talk about some of the gear that they used.
Technological advances really blooming get me in the mood.
So they use reverb and delay for the intro and the verse. The little guitar parts. They use fuzz for
slides.
The chorus. The little yeah, it's cool actually. Fuzz for the chorus, and apparently maybe a little bit of compressor on your fuzz tone for the solo, just to make those bends a bit more tidy. You want to use a driven tube amp with low mids, low bass, and boosted treble with some sort of overdrive pedal probably. And Jamie uses a Sims Watts, which is a Marshall / high watt clone in there. And solo wise, Alex uses a Selma, which was a competitor of Vox in the 60s. So it's a different amp, like an old amp from the 60s that he uses for the solo, as well as a Jazz Master guitar. A cheap alternative is a Bagheera, which is what some people use to kind of recreate that sound, and throw a tube screamer on it, and you'll get a good solo tone. So there you go. So it's interesting that they use that kind of amp. Yeah, it's interesting that he used a kind of a 60s amp that was a competitor of Vox, but obviously lost the competitor war, but perhaps was kind of a cult favorite for bands or something then. So I like that. That's pretty cool. So to go back to the song, turn a told enemy that the song's lyrics were partly inspired by the physicist and television presenter Brian Cox and his 2011 Wonders of the Universe TV series. I don't know if do you know Brian Cox?
I don't think so.
So he's a British scientist who does stuff on TV, and he's sort of does these shows about. He's a physicist basically, and he does these shows about like space and the universe. But he explains stuff in this kind of. He's known for explaining stuff like he'll pick up some rocks and kind of like explain it, and he speaks in this dull. He's from Manchester actually. He speaks from this dull kind of Manchester accent where he's like, and we pick up these rocks, and you do that, and he kind of explains it in this simple way. It's quite funny. He was actually also in the 90s. He was the keyboardist in the band D-Ream, who did the song that I don't even know if you'll know. It was a huge hit here, but things can only get better.
I don't know that one.
It was a huge song here, mainly because the Labour government used it in their campaign to win the 1997 election. So they would drive around with cars in the 90s playing "Things Can Only Get Better Now." So it's kind of a cult song here. But he was the keyboardist, bizarrely, in that band.
All right.
Manchester band. So yeah, but Alex said of it, the words are a bit Brian Cox, a bit Wonders of the Universe. They're my favourite words on there. There you go. Producer James Ford told NME why Turner's vocals sound different to his normal style on the fast part of the song. He said, I think it's doubled at that point. I don't know if we've really done that before. He sings it really loud, but there's two of him. It kind of seemed like a good idea in an Ozzy Osbourne way.
Yeah.
So they decided to double from the vocals in a way that Ozzy Osbourne does. There is some of that in there, isn't there? That when we listened to the Black Sabbath album before, and when you heard in the clip, then Ozzy's got quite powerful vocals on some of them, and Alex is quite powerful in this song. I
want to put a pin in the idea. I'll bring it up probably when we talk about the lyrics, but the pin in the idea that Alex thinks this is his best lyrics. Because I think that's an important. Well, I think that's an important distinction to who Alex is and how he's talked about his lyrics in the past.
Yes.
His own lyrics.
Yes. That is interesting. Okay. Put a pin in that. I have a lot of thoughts on the lyrics of this as well. Many of the lyrics for the songs in AM have a surrealist quality, and it's been inspired by Gabriel Garcia Marquez's magical realism. On this song, for instance, Alex sings of a girl whose lips are like the galaxy's edge and a kiss the colour of a constellation falling into place. Speaking with The Observer, the vocalist compared the lyrical content to Dutch artist M.C. Escher's lithograph Ascending and Descending, which depicts a large building roofed by a never-ending staircase. Obviously, we know that. He said, a lot of tunes on there describe scenarios that sometimes feel like a surrealist painting. I remember it from when we first started, going out, winding up at a club, and it didn't seem to make sense. It felt like a never-ending staircase. That's a very interesting observation.
That is cool, yeah.
Yeah, because it does sometimes feel like that, doesn't it, when you're kind of in that. And I think those kind of thoughts kind of go into tranquility as well, this idea of being stuck in a certain kind of loop of situations. I think that comes up a lot in tranquility. So it's obviously on his mind. And it's funny that he says about surrealist painting, because we were talking about that when we covered Bad Habits for our subscriber content on the show, weren't we? About how those lyrics felt like a surrealist painting. So yeah, there you go. It's all coming together. But we're obviously going to talk about the lyrics and the music soon in depth. But this one got to number 70 in the UK's singles chart. It got to number 70, but to break that down, it got to number 66 in the physical chart, and then kind of downloads, but it ended up averaging out at 70. It got into number 45 in the Mexico English airplay chart in Billboard. I don't think we've had Mexico before, maybe once before. Maybe
just once. Do I wonder?
Yeah, I think it was Do I Wanna Know. It was the first and the last time. Yeah. UK indie chart, it got to number 8. UK singles chart of 70. US hot rock and alternative songs Billboard number 47, which leads us nicely to this part of the show.
You could say they're selling like ghost cookies.
The last one, maybe, that we're going to have for a while. The last one for a while, maybe.
For maybe about a month, yeah.
Well, let's start with our respective native countries then, shall we? Right. United Kingdom, this went platinum.
Okay, so what is that?
You've been good at figuring this out.
800,000?
600,000. So not far off. And it also went platinum in the US of A.
So that would be 1 million.
Correct. Well done. Hang on. You're getting the US ones. Okay. So well done. That's one in the bag. Okay, we do have a few more on this. So we got Canada. It went platinum in Canada. The 51st state. Maybe not. Yes. Probably not.
God. Let's say 400,000.
No, nowhere near. It's 80,000 in Canada to get to a platinum. Would you believe?
Oh wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Canada's a
more
lot
deer than
smaller.
people. That's the problem. You see, that's why you don't get it.
Yes.
And then in
80,000.
Spain, it got gold in Spain. We have had Spain before.
I think yeah. I'm gonna say for gold 40,000.
Close, 30,000. So very close.
Okay.
Okay, so you got one which was America. See if you can get this last one to have multiple. So we mentioned obviously this was a hit in Italy, unsurprisingly with its sexy themes,
Mm.
but pasta and sex. That's so Italy. It got gold.
All right, so Spain was 30,000. So
Yeah, is Italy bigger or less smaller than Spain? That's the
I
question.
know. I'm trying to guess. I'll say 40,000.
No, 25,000.
Oh,
Really?
it's smaller. Ah, no.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't really think of. I've been to Italy a couple of times. I'm going again this summer, obviously, because we'll have to have a little break or work very hard to get the tracks out. But I don't really think of them as like being into the same music as us. Like even when I'm there, I never hear music when I'm there that kind of sounds like they don't really seem. But obviously, Arabella broke through. So the song's title combines the name of frontman Alex Turner's girlfriend, actress Arielle Vandenberg, and Jane Fonda's titular character in the 1968 French-Italian science fiction film Barbarella. Yes, she's real, Turner told Q magazine of the tune's female subject matter. So yeah, Arielle and Arabella, obviously a combination there.
Okay, that's cool.
Now, if you don't know, Barbarella, later marketed as Barbarella, Queen of the Galaxy, is a 1968 science fiction film directed by Roger Vadim, based on the French comic series by Jean-Claude Forest. The film stars Jane Fonda as the titular character, a space traveler and representative of the United Earth government, sent to find scientist Duran Durand, I wonder if that's where Duran Duran got their name from, who has created
Maybe.
a weapon that could destroy humanity. The supporting cast includes Jean-Philippe Law, Anita Pallenberg, Milo O'Shea, Marcel Marceau, famous actor, Claude Dauphin, David Hemmings, and Ugo Tognazzi. And I really think we should do a watch along of this movie for subscribers. And I'll tell you why by playing this clip.
I'm positive I could get you some sort of recompense from my government. I mean, if there's anything you need or that I can do, please tell me.
Well, you could let me make love to you.
Make love, did you say?
Yes.
What do you mean? You don't even know my psychocardiogram.
Eh?
Well, on Earth, for centuries, people haven't made love unless their psychocardiogram readings were in perfect confluence.
I know nothing of that.
Oh, brilliant!
Oh,
that?
God.
That's what you could let me make love to you. How could you make love to me? You haven't seen my cardiogram. Like, what is going on? I think I'll watch along of that in the
the
is
60s.
necessary. Yeah, what a time. What a brilliant film. But yeah, it's I need to get stoned and watch that film. That's maybe I'll convince my girlfriend this weekend to watch it. So yeah, but it's obviously Alex. You can tell it's kind of stuff Alex likes, though, isn't it? You can kind of see that in there. This is the stuff that he's into. It's no surprise that he knows what Barbarella is. So let's get some reviews of the track then. We've had your awful review, Justin, so let's hear what other people are saying. The song is described by Far Out magazine as a fusing of late 90s hip hop and R&B with 70s hard rock. They also noted musical references to the likes of Sabbath, and it's more than a reference, but yeah, the likes of Sabbath or Zeppelin and the futurism of Dr. Dre, combined with lyrical extracts like Arabella's got a 70s head, but she's a modern lover. She's made of outer space. Rolling Stones put it at number 10 in the best Arctic songs, a list that we've already looked at and considered, so no need for a bonus round before people get excited. In this 70s inspired dreamscape, we take a dip into Turner's daydreams of his vixen lover Arabella, with a guitar hook that heavily recalls Black Sabbath's War Pigs, so much again, they sampled it doesn't heavily. The track is as sonically sexy as Turner's lyrics about a bombshell with lips like a galaxy's edge. Every glistening piece of Arabella that makes it magical explodes when the song reaches its masterful bridge. Turner's frantic vocals, a tantalizing guitar line, and then a solo that slices through the song, driving at full speed. Enemy list, where do you reckon obviously we had a bit of a surprise with one for the road being in like 25 or something like that, higher than we would anticipate.
Yeah, but
now,
this person, remember, doesn't like heavy songs.
All I would say is in my personal life and people I know, and also in my research of this album, you are very much an outlier with your opinion of this song. 50-50, so I would bear that in mind, is what I would say.
Okay.
I guess.
All right. Well, I would be surprised because, generally this person has treated a lot of the heavy songs like very poorly, from my memory. But I mean, with that in mind, and one for the road being so high, then I'll say 15.
They put it at number 9. In the list.
What? No, that's so high.
Yeah, I have to say it probably will be in my top 10 of all the songs. I've got to be honest with you.
Really?
Potentially. It's a tough list, isn't it? But I think this. So we had this with Are You Mine, where we thought it wouldn't be high because they don't like heavy stuff. I think they don't like the heavy stuff that they were doing for Humbug, and they don't like some of the heavy beats or some of the heavy stuff on Suck It and See, which to be fair is a kind of different vibe. But they obviously like vibey rocks. I mean, heavy. I mean, calling the song heavy is probably a stretch, but they obviously like this kind of style of kind of.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because with one for the road being 20 something, I guess so.
They like rock, obviously more than like, I guess what you would call kind of weird
Stoner rock.
Yeah. So, but they said, is this a sexiest Arctic Monkeys song ever? Maybe we'll discuss later.
Bolstered by
that's
it's gonna be a hot take there.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later because I disagree. Bolstered by a riff inspired by Black Sabbath's War Pigs, this electric hard, again not inspired, taken. This electric hard rock stomper flashes a knowing grin, rolls out a litany of cool come-ons, and has all the sudden jolts of alluring imagery necessary to set many a mind whirring. Turner's lusty drawl lingers like a dangling cigarette. Ooh, that's a nice line. As he dissects that particular type of painful, life-consuming longing. And her lips are like the galaxy's edge. He deadpans, knowing she'll forever be out of reach. I can't distinguish anymore between the things that I read in the reviews and the AI at the end when I'm reading.
Yeah, I know. Now it's just kind of, and to be fair, the AI is probably abusing articles like this to form.
Absolutely it is. Yeah, that's how it works. So yeah.
So
this is the part of the show where for subscribers we will watch the video because they still have a video, which I've seen maybe once in my whole life. So I'm very interested to see it because I haven't pre-watched it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be watching that. And sadly for you non-subscribers, you're just gonna get a trailer about how you can become a subscriber. So yeah, maybe you'll hear the trailer, become a subscriber, and then come back and watch the video and do it all. Yeah. Like a time traveling. Silver lining, puppet on a string, all that. There's a lyric there, and there's somewhere the lyrical. We don't get a lot of a lyrical arms anymore. But let's play the video jingle and get into the video for you subscribers.
They shot it all in cinema scope.
Love the podcast? Get even more with our exclusive Patreon content. For just £3 a month, extended versions of our episodes, in both video and audio, released a week early with pre-show album reviews specially selected to set the tone for each track. This era's artists include The Black Keys, Ashanti, Outkast, Black Sabbath, T-Rex, Elton John, Leonard Cohen, The Coral, Dr. Dre, Gorillaz, Queens of the Stone Age, and Aaliyah. Also every week, we use cutting-edge software to create AI-generated covers of each track by artists we've handpicked. Playback and commentary on official music videos for single releases. Enjoy acoustic or special live performance watch-alongs at the end of each episode. Post-show debriefs, including our new segment, It's Nothing on the Early Stuff, where we compare each track to the band's back catalogue. Plus, we regularly put out bonus content and watch-alongs. And for all you Shadow Puppets fans out there, upgrade to our £5 tier and get everything above, plus a monthly deep dive into a track from the last Shadow Puppets back catalogue, PLSP watch-alongs, and the chance to choose a non-Monkeys related track for us to cover in our usual format. So, join us now at patreon.com/Arctic Podcast and unlock the deeper cuts, behind-the-scenes chat, and the Arctic extras you won't find anywhere else. So yeah, we're back. We just watched the video. Interesting video, not what we were expecting, and parental advisory warning for it. So it's always that's.
Yes,
I think that is
there
that.
is
I think the
some
next
nudity.
one also. I think the next video we watch also has a parental advisory, which we don't get a lot from Monkey. So which kind of lends itself to the sexiness of AM, right? So yeah, now I'm very intrigued to jump into the music now. But if people do want to watch that video, as you heard in the trailer there, patreon.com/Arctic Podcast. And yeah, I want to jump into it because you have shocked me and you have appalled me, and I am I am offended, and I need to know, Justin, what it is about this song you don't like, because I still don't know. So let's talk about the music, shall we?
Okay.
So the start. See, for me, the start is very fucking good. I love that bass and drums. I think they sound great. Drums sound like really crisp, and it's a simple beat, but it's very effective, and the bass is fantastic as ever with Mr. O'Malley.
So it's interesting that you say that. Well, so this isn't where I plan to start, but one thing I did make a note of it was, so far, this is our 4th track covering an AM, and it's interesting that people really come out and say things about Tranquility and stuff about Matt and Suck It and See with Matt and stuff like that, where I didn't cover Suck It and See with you, but listening along, I think with Suck It and See, it was quite surprising how good some of those bass lines were, but with AM so far, I've been quite surprised to find how simple a lot of the bass lines are. This one is probably the most intricate that we've seen, but still nothing like we've seen from Nick previously, which is not necessarily a bad thing, just kind of a surprising thing.
I've always said that I don't get the whole song, because you don't have to be doing like constant drum rolls and stuff to do good drumming, and sometimes discipline is just as impressive, and like a lot of the Tranquility stuff is like jazz drumming, right, which is insanely difficult to do. And I think Ari Mine aside, he has been quite neutered, although obviously later in the song he does let rip more, but it's he is fairly controlling that. But that's a hip hop thing, right? He's a hip hop drummer. It's very rare you hear a hip hop song where the drums and the bass aren't just controlled, and tightened up. And
oh wait, are you referencing the drums now or the bass now?
Both, actually. I think. They go together quite well. I think it's very rare that in these kind of drums, and to be fair, they've always been like that in verses, right? It's very rare, apart from some songs where they're not controlled in the verses and they're just doing crazy stuff. So I think they've always had.
Well, maybe I misspoke. My point was about Nick being very limited in these songs so far.
Limited, but brilliant. Like I think
they're very simple. They're very simple.
Simple, but I don't think you have to be doing anything difficult to make something good. Like, I
don't think so either. I just think compared to what like I was saying, in Suck It and See, it was those songs just generally sound or feel kind of more simple. And then when you really get into the instrument, you're like, wow, these bass lines are amazing. Like, fantastic.
Like
and then in this, I think I just kind of assumed that the bass was also really good and impressive. And then when I've listened to the instrumentals, I've been quite surprised to find that, oh wow, the bass isn't really doing much,
Yeah, it's true. But with Suck It and See, right, you've got these kind of melodic songs, and he's doing that kind of Pixies thing or the Smiths where the bass is doing this kind of melodic stuff with this brilliant bass to go with it. With this, I don't think like if you're gonna do this kind of album and you're doing songs like One for the Road, Arabella, less is more with the bass. And if you think you never hear any hip hop songs where the bass is like going like amazing. They're usually cool and doing something where you go, oh, that's pretty vibey, but it's not like amazing. So I think it's not necessary for him to be like, what would he do in this verse that would really be much? And I think this type of bass is actually quite reminiscent of one of my favorite Nick bass lines in Jeweler's Hands, with the kind of, you know, the doom, 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 where it's simple but very effective. And I just find that I just don't think he needs to be doing more. And the bass and the drums here actually remind me also a lot of Brothers, the Black Keys album, where I think they kind of gelled hip hop and rock as well, where they're just tight in places. And I just don't think it's necessary for Nick to be doing any more in this verse. I just don't know what he would do that would be like. I don't think it would work. I think they're look, it's the hip hop thing. That's what it is. That's why it's like this. And like One for the Road, because
this is the hip hop portion. The verses are definitely the hip hop portion. Yeah.
And One for the Road was a simple bass line, but a very good one. That we both praised because it gave room. And I Do Want to Know did a similar thing where it was controlled, and the space it gave allowed for a kind of vibe that's cool. But let me ask you that on that then. Do you have a problem with that, or are you just commenting on it?
No, I don't. Yeah, more of just like, it's kind of feels like the opposite of the Second and C reaction of you assume that they're simple, and then you're like, wow, they're actually quite intricate. And in this one, I just kind of assumed that they were more intricate, and now I'm kind of like, oh, they're more simple.
Well, and that's why. It's something I can't remember if we touched about it in the show or in the pre-show, but like you mentioned there about Tranquility and people going mad saying there's not enough of Howlers or this and that. But like you say on AM, there isn't that much in a lot of places.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of surprised that people
and the bass
say,
is actually,
oh, Matt is muted in Tranquility, but you never really hear people say, oh, Nick is muted in AM, when he kind of is a little bit, technically.
It's something we touched upon in the pre-show. I think it was a pre-show, and you said about the guitar and that people just decide that guitar's like, they could bring guitar back in the album, the car, but it wasn't the guitar people want, so it doesn't count. And it's a similar thing where the bass is actually very good on Tranquility. When we get to do the instrumentals for Tranquility, the bass is phenomenal, whether it's all Nick or Alex or whatever. The bass is fantastic, particularly in songs like Tranquility. So people don't want to hear that because they don't like the style. But on AM, even though Nick isn't doing very much, they like the style. So it's okay. Do you know what I mean? And that's why you can never win. That's why it's better to just... That's why it's not good to do AM2 and just do what you want to do. Because if you start pandering to people, then you're just going to produce crap. That's kind of how, you slip into commercial crap like Coldplay. I think he's doing what... And I think Arctic Monkeys have always been good at that, right? Is doing what the song requires, whoever you are in the band. You know, Jamie isn't doing a lot in some songs across all the albums, and he's doing what's necessary for the song. And that's that thing of no egos, right? Nick isn't going, no, I need this bass line to be phenomenal, and then ruining the song with it. So, yeah, I like that about them, that they're willing to just go, you know what, it doesn't need more of me in this, you know. So yeah, I like it, but I do think it sounds great though, from a production point of view as well. I think they both sound great, and it's more the sound of the bass that reminds me of Jeweler's Hands, because they're kind of doing these little dum occasionally at the end with the bass, which reminds me of my favorite part of Jeweler's Hands with the dum 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 dum.
Does have that similar kind of tone.
Sound. We've
been praising that tone a lot, the bass tone, and I do think that stays consistent here. It does sound really nice.
And if you do go back and listen to Jeweler's Hands, not to blow my own trumpet, I did say that I thought that bass tone on Jeweler's Hands was very hip hop. But for a song that isn't very hip hop, or an album that isn't very hip hop at all, it was a very hip hop type bass line that reminded me of like Amy Winehouse song from the 2000s and stuff. So there you go. See, it's all coming together. So here's a question for you as well, because I think this opening carries on that One for the Road hip hop vibe, just in a slightly different way. And I know I mentioned something when we did Do I Want to Know How You Mine. I said I wasn't sure, because I know you're big on pairing songs and placing songs in ways on albums, as we've seen in wrap ups and stuff. And I felt like, is Do I Want to Know How You Mind too similar to be next to each other on the album? And I always felt, but I let that one. That one's fine. They're different enough. But I always felt the One for the Road and Arabella following it is a weird placement because it's too similar in the opening, and obviously it changes up to a completely different style. But I find it, I have before found it a bit jarring. It's like you wouldn't. The way I always try and explain it is, you wouldn't put them together in a gig because it'd be too similar for the whole run. So I just find it a weird placement that they're next to each other. I think they should be split up, but at the same time, you can come at an angle of it's good that they're together because they have a similar thematic sort of pairing, or it's bad that they're together because they're too similar in the opening and that. But the change up kind of saves it. What do you think?
Well, I'm gonna give one support and then contradict myself. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate against myself, my guess.
That sounds like an RX lyric. I played I figured against myself and I lost. Yes.
So in some ways, it kind of reminds me of something like D is for Dangerous and Balaclava kind of back to back, where they are kind of similar and they kind of create this blur a little bit. Which can be good and can be bad. But what I will say, since you brought it up too about how I do placements and kind of how I think about this one, this isn't going to come up much on this album, but if you'll recall, I listened to Suck It and See It in a very specific way where I didn't like the rock songs being on there. However, I don't just discard songs. You know, I moved Cornerstone from Humbug up to Suck It and See so it would mesh with all the melodic stuff. So what I typically do is I commented on how I really loved a lot of the rock songs. We praised Evil Twin, Blondo Sonic. So what I typically do is take a lot of all the rock songs, B-sides, and album tracks from Suck It and See. And I even said at that time there was this potential for a double album. And I typically listen to Arabella with those kind of songs. So like Evil Twin, Blondo Sonic, Don't Sit Down, Library Pictures and stuff like that. It's got the solo, it's got the, you know, like You and I and stuff. So that's so kind of going to your point. I also don't really like them kind of back to back like that. And because of that, I kind of just remove Arabella from the equation a lot of the time.
Yeah, although you could say that that's unusual because what you do is you put certain styles together.
Yeah,
on
more like
albums.
consistent style.
So technically, you should like these two. But would it be fair to say then, because I don't know yet what it is you don't like, we haven't reached that point.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Would it be fair to say that one of the issues you may have with this song is because if you don't like rock songs being on Suck It and See, for example, then you have a problem. You have not a problem, a taste, particular taste, a distaste for the meshing of genres on albums. So that would suggest that you may have a distaste for the meshing of genres in one song. And this song is the ultimate meshing of two different genres, right?
That's pretty much a big ding right there. Yeah. So you're right. So I remember specifically, I talked about when I first listened to this album, this is one of the tracks where I got a distaste for it. And I remember because I said I love about 50% of the song. I love the verses. So you're talking about how the opening was so strong. I agree. I really love going back to the music part of it. The guitar slide with the reverb built in. I love the production of the reverse sounds because I think that's very consistent with what they're doing on this album, right? Of like working with production. I love the palm muted guitar run. I just think that's like really clever in a way to use guitar in a hip hop-esque way where you're kind of building this loop and like building this vibe. I think that's really smart. And I just don't think the sudden bottom, and also to know that it's like straight up stolen from a Black Sabbath song almost kind of makes it worse because I'm like, you didn't like need to do that, in my opinion, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, to sort of pick on a couple of points there. I think that the reasons that you don't like that are the reasons that I do like it.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, not saying that like there's a right or a wrong way. It's probably, if I was to theorize, the reason why people do like it as well. That's probably one of the because for me, like if we just had another one for the road, for example, I'd be a bit like, all right, we've done this now. Let's not. It could be a bit boring, like to have two straight up hit, but like, and I just think that because when I first heard it, I remember enjoying the verse as well, and then you get this sudden and I love that it just changes into a rock song, and I think they nailed it. I don't think it's jarring. For me, it isn't jarring. It actually makes sense to do that for me, and I think it's smart. And it's actually the two sides of the album, right? It's rock.
Yeah, we talked about that
hip-hop.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Do I Want to Know or Are You Mine? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of going right. Okay, this is the ultimate of that. This is the two songs, and what I think the reason why, because I don't think you have a problem with it. This album, I don't think you have like on Suck It and See with the rock and the melodic. You don't have a problem as much with the hip hop and the rock. It's fair to say, and I think it's because they get the blend right on a lot of it on the album, and I think the blend here is for me perfect. And I don't have a problem with the War Pigs thing because most people in music do, like bands steal stuff all the time and get away with it because it's slightly different. And if it wasn't an official sample and we didn't know about Sabbath, for example, we wouldn't even know. It's only because we know because it's an official thing that they've declared. And I just think bands do that all the time, right? And you rip it off, and music is basically never original anymore. You take something from something, and but I just think it works, and I actually think that makes it cooler that they didn't know where to. In my head, anyway, in my head canon, which is probably maybe not even true, but they didn't know where to go with the song. They wanted to do it. It was going in another hip hoppy way, like One for the Road, but probably a full album of that, a full track about Arabella in that One for the Road style, I think could be quite dull or quite repetitive. And then they just were listening to Sabbath, or like you say, Jamie slipped in that riff, and they went, "Oh, this is interesting." And I think they fuse it quite well, and I just think it's a great moment. It's a great sudden change, and that, if nothing else, like that riff is cool. That Sabbath riff, that and then the cymbal tap is just. It's cool when Ozzy does his in black masses shit, and like it's just cool. That's cool, but it's cool with Alex's about Arabella
and best when
yeah, and it's that, and I think it suits the song because Arabella is sexy as a woman, but she's also got the hip hop sexiness, but she's got the rock hip sexiness, which I think is a difference. So she's kind of like
aspect,
she's kind of she's the bombshell, and she's the girl you want to be with, but she's also the cool, smoking a bit of weed, wearing a biker jacket girl. Everyone that likes bands, right? We all want a girl that's cool and sexy, but also a rock chick. Like that's the dream, right? Yeah. Someone that gets the music. So I think the song musically sums up Arabella as he describes her in the lyrics, and that's kind of why I think it works for me.
There's another aspect too that you have brought up before in another instance. We haven't actually talked about the song, but I feel in a similar way. I felt this way even before I knew about the War Pigs aspect of it, but I felt this way is when you have discussed the idea of why you initially didn't really like I Ain't Quite Where I Think I Am, of where it was one of the first instances where you thought, it feels like Arctic Monkeys trying to do someone else. And,
it was and I think Bowie,
yeah. And I think that absolutely applies to a song where they take the guitar riff, where it feels like Arctic Monkeys trying to be Sabbath-y. They don't really do the strumming like this. Like it's not common for them. And 4 albums worth, they don't result to power chords. And here they are doing the exact riff. I don't know. It just doesn't vibe with me.
I really don't get that. Like, so the difference for me is the Bowie one. It sounds like Bowie in like one of my favorite Bowie albums and stuff like that. So it might be very specific to me, and it's the first time I thought that, like I said. But this, I think, actually, Sabbath are so ingrained in the band that it doesn't feel like them trying to do something else. It sounds like them doing them to me. See, I think even on the early stuff, like the first album, when they're doing the ding, 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 all like stuff like that, like they were doing bar chords, which aren't a million miles away from power chords, really. But it's still, and like some stuff on Favorite Worst Nightmare, B-sides as well. And I just think they have had that rock thing in them. And because we've just listened to like Are You Mine a couple of tracks before and stuff like that, I don't think it never ever even occurred to me until you're saying it that it doesn't sound like them. I always thought it exclusively did sound like them. I actually thought it was like the epitome of everything we're building towards is stuff like this. Like that's what they could be. And I think the way that they, as we go in the song, I'm going to be interested to see how you feel about the later portion of this song, because I think the way they take it and they build and do it in what I think is a fantastic solo, in my opinion, is great. And I think, look, the lyrics in this song do a lot for it as well. I still think that his lyrics are great. But before we get into that, because we are jumping ahead, we obviously disagree on that from a taste point of view, but it is funny that is a good discussion, because I don't get that feeling that I got with I Ain't Where I Think I Am at all. It's never even occurred to me. Even though they're specifically taking a track, it doesn't occur to me at all. It feels right to me. It feels in keeping with the band at this point.
And that's funny, because I thought that from my very first listen without even knowing that it was taken. Like, that was just my natural thought. I just thought like, this doesn't,
and it's
like,
interesting that
this feels like an imitate. I remember thinking like, this feels like an imitation of something. And then I come to find out, it is another song. So
yeah, you said it, and I didn't know that either when I first listened to it, but it never felt wrong. It felt right, which is very interesting, because I didn't know about the Sabbath War Pigs at that point. I think I just heard Paranoid and Iron Man, but that is interesting. But you mentioned that guitar, to go back to the verses, that kind of thing he's doing, that is pretty hip hop, isn't it? That is we haven't quite got the name of the Jamie Cook and the Jangles for this series, have we? The Jamie Cook and the Jay-Z's. Can you have that? Jamie Cook and the Jay-Z's.
Maybe, yeah. He's not in jail yet, so we can.
We can do that. Yeah, Jamie Cook and the Ja Rules. Can we have that? What did he say?
Oh, Ja Rules. Damn. I don't know if that's the one you want to pull from, but. But yeah,
he's doing that. It's kind of backwards, and it's like you say, it's very hip hop, isn't it? Like, it's very that. Very cool.
And then even I like, again, this is something that we mentioned. So this is something that they're doing different that I like, because over and over and over again, we saw that they have a verse, they set up this verse, and it's got its pieces, and then the second verse comes along and the guitar just totally drops out, or maybe does like a little bit of flourishes or whatever. But last week and now this week, we're getting more extra guitar in the second verse. They're not dropping out. And I love the added, it's another muted guitar picking part, but it's different. And I think it's a really cool add and build, because it's another hip hop-esque palm muted guitar, but it's distinct. At the how does it even go? Like so the first one.
Well, they do this the whole. So when it comes to second verse, first of all the guitar does this like as it comes in, like a sort of like, it's hard to goes cool. Like it's hard to know like explain that, but obviously we'll play the clip. But they do a whole palm muted thing for this second verse, where they're going like which is really cool.
It is cool.
It's great. It's just palm mute, simple but really effective with the beat. you think that you're probably, because what we've established in our pre-show coverage for the unwashed that don't pay, is that you're a big hip hop fan, but you're not a big 70s rock fan or metal fan. So do you think that
even
plays into it as well?
I think so, because even like you had mentioned, like I don't even like Zeppelin, Iron Maiden, like it's never been my vibe, never. And yeah, that very well could be it, because I love these verses. I've always loved these verses. I love the vibe, the like as you said, the swell, the wow kind of piece to it. And yeah, it's just those like big, power chords, and like it just yeah, I don't know. It could just be my personal taste.
It's not fair to ask you this, because I hate it when someone says, because it's like when someone says, I don't know, like about a problem with politicians. You say, well, what would you do then? Which is very unfair, because it's not your job to do that. It's not our skill. But just in case you do have any ideas, would you? Because I said to have another One for the Road, like to have these verses and then the chorus maybe doing like a One for the Road style type thing, I would think would be too much for one. It would be too dull to hear and do two versions of that. Where would you like the song to have gone for a chorus? If you could choose.
Well, I think what they set up in the verses, we've seen this in all three previous songs before. So I mean, to say like it happens in the same way of One for the Road, so it would be boring, I think is a little unfair, because Do I Want to Know, we said they take this song, it's their biggest song that we've talked about so far on this album, and maybe like ever so far, and the verse is essentially the same as the chorus. What they're playing for the verse and the chorus is the same. They just change it. So even the fact that some of these pieces are palm muted, or that the bass is not doing much, I think there is a lot of easy room to open it. I think there is, without completely changing the style.
I guess my problem is that I find that the lyrics needed the song to go rocky. I think a kind of chorus, maybe it could have gone psychedelic, is what I'll say. That's where I go, because I feel like the solo, the next time we get a solo chorus, we're calling it the Saurus. The Saurus. The solo is quite psychedelic in a way, in its kind of sound. So
yeah,
I could see it going psychedelic in the chorus, in a kind of
humbug
what's the band called that they cover? It's only going backwards. Tame Impala. I could see it going a bit Tame Impala.
Impala. I've been listening to them a lot lately. Yeah,
a bit psychedelic, and or even a bit like back in the day, a bit MGMT or something. But I just think the rockiness is just too cool. They're just too enjoyable for me to not want it in there. So I think it's fun, right? And I think I don't think it's a bad thing to say that. I think we've talked a lot about losing the fun for Humbug and getting that back a bit. And you didn't like the rockier songs, as I can see, because they're kind of jokey, and maybe they are a bit too much fun. Maybe the lyrics are a bit too silly. But I mean, not in my, but to play devil's advocate. But then these are like serious lyrics, but it's fun, and you're getting that. If nothing else, whether you like it or you find it jarring or you like it or not, it is a fun song, and I imagine when you've seen them live, it's enjoyable for you, and it's a cool song, and it is just it's a bit like Favorite Worst Nightmare, right? It's just fun. And
I will say in support of this song, and it's actually something that's going to come up in the post discussion of It's Nothing on the Early Stuff, is and a critique I've given of this, or said I would bring up of this album, that this song doesn't have, is this is the one that sounds full and fun. Like, it is absolutely not surprising to me at all that this is a staple in the set now. Like, this is absolutely a live song that sounds fulfilling live. The solo sounds good live. The strumming sounds good live. Like, it does sound like a full, fun live song. So I absolutely will give it that for sure.
And you had a critique of One for the Road where sometimes live we both did, where sometimes live it sounds a bit stripped down. This one, this one is not thin live. This works
it's
completely
not
live. But yeah, I think it's also a staple in the set because it is a kind of fan favorite sing along, right?
Yeah,
it is a kind of enjoyable one. So yeah, like, I'm pretty sure if it's the 18th in the track, it's probably never come out of the set since. I would imagine based off the numbers it had. So yeah, but so the second verse you mentioned there about the other guitar, yeah, that palm muting and stuff is great, and the kind of what Jamie's doing again, it's that kind of thing with Jamie, isn't it? We're talking about him being the kind of vibe setter and the Moog synthesizer and all that. He's doing these like guitar things which are kind of like we were saying about the bass and the drums, simple but very effective. No need for more. You don't need to be doing more in these verses than that. They're also, I think, giving Alex the space vocally to do a lot in this song and do this bigger. And James Ford, they're talking about doubling it up. Like, this is again much like potentially all the tracks really on this album. Alex is leading it vocally with like keeping the music tight and at bay, but having the vocals really bring the song to life. Because when we listen to the instrumentals, they're quite simple to listen to, and you kind of realize how much, even though very enjoyable and very good, you realize how much Alex is bringing to these songs with his lyrics and his vocals on this, and Helders with and Nick with the backing vocals. But yeah,
I honestly, with the way that Alex previously talked about writing these songs, I honestly could see Nick being in a mind, maybe the whole band, but specifically Nick being in a mindset of, Alex said he wrote a lot of the lyrics and the like this styling the lyrics, the flow of the lyrics to the bass and drum tracks, and knowing that versus what was going on in Second and C, where Alex sat down and wrote these songs on like an acoustic guitar, let's say, for instance, and then everybody added their stuff. I could see where Nick would say, I'm going to keep it simple to allow Alex to have the space. And if he comes back with something that's more airy or more spacey, then maybe I'll fill out the bass lines a little bit more. And if it's really depending on his flow or what he's doing, then I'll keep it simple and really lock in with the drums. And I think ultimately Alex filled those spaces out. So Nick maybe didn't need to fill those spaces out.
And it's interesting to think of him writing the choruses of this. If he is doing it all to bass and drums, right, and assuming that he said that, so let's assume that he did. Without the down, so the bass and drums would be like, and he's writing that, and that's why it's got that kind of, I guess that my days end best when the sun self gets itself.
Yeah,
so it's like that guy.
He's timing it, yeah.
He's timing it with those cymbal taps and stuff, and I think that's why the choruses do work for me. Like, I know musically you find it jarring, but I think Alex nails the performance, the lyrics, and and that's why I think what he's saying with the my days and best, and we'll talk about it when we do the lyrics, but those particular lyrics work with the rock bit for me because he's going up with it, and he's almost he's like kind of talking about her as this spacey. This is what I like, and this might. I hope I can explain this well, but the music at this point is it's hip hop, but you could say it's a bit spacey, right? Because the lyrics are kind of
vibey, yeah.
Barbarella, silver swimsuit,
trippy a little bit,
and then the guitar goes down, and the lyrics kind of flip into this kind of more. My days end best when the sun self gets its behind that little lady sitting on the pasture side. It suddenly flips into from airy, spacey fantasy girl into down hot girl that's right in front of you, and I just feel like the lyrics become focused into reality when the music comes in, as if that's like a cue, like you've got it's being a bit flaky, the guitar's going do 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 do, and it's all a bit kind of, and then the guitar just goes dum, and you focus the lyrics. And I think he kind of did that, whether intentional or not. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I really think at that point the lyrics switch from fantasy to reality with the girl and how amazing she is, because there's nothing in the chorus that is spacey and fantasy like it is in the verses. And even with the apart from
well, she might have tapped
at the
into your
end,
mind and soul.
yeah, but that part of the song is when it phases back into the verse, right? And then even the kind of the build up to the solo, it's all quite real, isn't it? It's all quite sexy and quite
grounded and just
well.
chord, just the chord strumming.
And apart from the bit which is a very interesting lyric to discuss, that takes a sip of your soul, but that bit leads into a psychedelic solo, right? And his voice, they put a kind of bit of spacey reverb on his voice. So I just think it's interesting. It kind of plays with a couple of kind of genres musically and lyrically, in a sense of reality versus fantasy. But we will get into that booth in a bit, obviously. We get the second chorus is same muchness, but I was thinking, do you think in the second chorus Hell just goes a bit bigger? I was kind of feeling like
actually,
he was doing a little bit more.
One thing, not even just the second chorus, but in the second verse, he starts going a little bigger. He's adding these little flourishes. I don't know. He's just adding like a little bit extra, like in between. I've noticed.
In between, yeah. And I feel like in the second chorus, he's bringing bigger singles. He's bringing the hi hats or something in, right? Which is something he talked about on that Drumeo, actually, for All You Mine, is bringing the hi hats in at a different point of the song and stuff. So it's obviously something he likes to do.
So I think he's building it naturally through the drums. He is like the verses, it's getting a little bit more technical, and then the second chorus sounds a little bit more open with those cymbals and stuff. So I think so.
You know what I think about Helder's getting technical?
Technological advances really blooming get me in the mood.
Oh man, so I'm starting to get excited about Tranquility already. So obviously then the chorus does. Do you remember when we did Are You Mine and we were talking about how brilliant it transitioned from this chorus to this build-up part to a solo, and it had that change up. I think what is interesting, because you don't like the rock part there with the wall picks. What do you think about this? Because I think this is great when it transitions up into the. Do you not like that?
So another split that I don't like is I really love the verses. Insane. I don't like the chorus, but I think the solo is really good and goes into the outro really well. I do not like the bridge part. I don't like it at all.
You don't like the back and forth BV and singing? I do not. Nuts to me. That is crazy. I don't think you like melding of genres and also singing and backing vocal transitions, because I think that has come up before with the kind of although you did like it in One for the is it One for the Road or Are You Mine, where there was kind of a bit of part that was Helder's and now it's going back. But
I have mentioned, so I guess this is probably a good part to do, because it doesn't actually have anything to do with the lyrics, but I had mentioned that there are parts in this whole album where they really lean a lot into the backup vocal, or the falsetto, too much falsetto. And the bridge of this is one of the moments throughout this whole album where the falsetto sounds cheesy to me, because in One for the Road, he would pretty much go like through the whole song with him, and I thought it was like a good blend. When it's just him doing a call and response, there's something about the falsetto in that piece. It's not a part of the vibey part. It's part of this like crunchy metal part. It sounds cheesy to me. The backing vocals sound very cheesy to me in that part.
I am shocked, cheesy. Listeners. I couldn't disagree. In fact, this bit is my favorite part of the song. Actually,
my least favorite.
When you listen to it instrumentally, I love that build up that the guitar's doing. It's very, it's almost like film score X build up, the way it's doing that, ding, it's going up, and I think it just builds, and I love that. I love the not. I don't have a problem with the backing vocals. I think they sound absolutely fine. I don't think they sound silly or anything or cheesy. I don't think it's too much, but I love what they're doing with the lyrics back and forth, like they did in. I think it was One for the Road. They did that, where they're doing that bit where the kind of answer. Oh, was it Are You Mine? Where he's kind
It's
of
Do I Want to Know, isn't it?
Oh, it's It might be all.
Do I want to know if my feel? Well, it's Do I want to know if this feeling goes both ways? Sad to see it go. Sort of hoping that, and then they build it out later in that. Yeah, so maybe it's more than one, but I haven't had a problem I don't think at this point.
I mean, there is one song on this album where I think the BVs don't work at all.
Yeah,
but we're nowhere near getting there yet. But I think, and it actually intrigues me about one song that I really love that I'm worried now that you might hate. That was my favorite on the album for a very, very long time.
Interesting.
But I think just the back and forth and the pairing goes really well on this one.
So one thing maybe to
lyrics as well.
Maybe to put your mind at ease, since we're still in the music portion, which I think this is, it'll go both ways. But you said you really thought that this is probably or it was in the review, the sexiest album or the sexiest song on the album. I have a song that I think is the sexiest song on the album, and we haven't talked about it yet. So
there is one song that's probably the only contender for being the sexiest song on the album. So yeah, we're probably in agreement on what that is, because I can't think of another one that is, and we're not close to it, right? We're not close.
Yeah,
to
we're not close to it.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I think we're on the same page with that. But the I just really love that chorus. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the lyrics, so we'll get there soon. But really, that bit, I will say this though about that, I really did find that bit emotive, that breakdown build up, and it was purely based on the lyrics and what I like what they're doing, because honestly, listening to it instrumentally was the first time I've heard that bit properly and what the music's doing, because I'm so focused on the lyrics and the singing at that point. So I really like it. But because the lyric vocals normally just occupy so much of it. But there's a great Helder's drum fill here before we get to the solo. We have to give him his dues. This is a great drum fill. Very brief, but very, very fast. And we get to what I think, and I think you said yourself, is a great solo. I think they get it so right with the tone of the guitar, the almost short length of it, but also just long enough, and the coolness of it, the sexiness of the solo. It fits that, and they had to look. If we're talking about cheesiness, they had to get this solo right, because the lyric before it directly leads into it, which is a very risky thing to do, because that could be a cheesy thing to do. But I think they absolutely nailed it, so they completely get away with it, and it's not bad, because the solo is what it is required to be from the lyrics. So I think, I love the solo, and it's Alex obviously, because he gets his guitar back for it. So.
He does, yeah. Now, this is one thing that was a little surprising to me, especially this song, because I do find pieces of it, like I said, almost like a type of imitation. And it's interesting because just about a year and a half before this song comes out, we listened to the interview of him saying, like, we specifically avoided some guitar solos like this because we thought it was cheesy. So now now again, remember, I actually do like the solo on this. I'm not calling the solo cheesy. I'm just like referencing back to they specifically avoided this for so long because they thought it was cheesy.
Yeah, I think we said that last week, didn't we? That they've or Are You Mine, that they've decided to embrace the core, because I think that was always in them to do, but they were avoiding it because I think they had a lot of hang-ups because of where they're from and the early stuff, and trying not to be that kind of thing. But they've always had that in their locker. They've always been able to do that. And I don't think there's a problem with letting that loose because, look, it's a fine line. I don't think it's cheesy. And I think there's a lot of rock that's cheesy, but don't we all love a bit of cheesy rock sometimes? You know what I mean? Like, it's like...
Sure, yeah. The glam rock specifically, too, yeah.
And I think some people get away with it and some don't. And look, to get away with a solo like this, the rest of the song has to be on point, and I just think they do. And obviously, people think so because it's a favorite bit, and you do wait for the solo. You love to hear the solo live. It's a great moment, and in the song, and you see one of those like Are You Mine where you're forced to do the air guitar, right? Whenever I'm listening to it, I have to do the like that. It's one of those, which is just cool and fun, and it's one of the reasons why this album was such a hit is because it just fills you with joy, right? You don't have to, with Humbug and stuff. I enjoy it in a different way, and it's like that, but you can put an album on and actually I get the same thing with Tranquility, unlike some people where I just listen to it fills me with joy as well. Like I get so much from it. But with this one, it's just visceral fun. It's like this album's like Humbug's like going watching an art house film that makes you think about your life. This feels like going watching like a Arnold Schwarzenegger 80s action film. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and sometimes there's nothing wrong with either. Although I will say lyrically, there is more to it in a lot of places than your kind of cheesy film. He is like last week we had a great discussion, didn't we, on One for the Road about whether it means this and that. So he's slipping that in there lyrically. But yeah, I love it, and I love that it switches to the outro and they hold the last note of the solo over it for a good like sort of 15 seconds or something like that as it ends. They kind of do the over that end, and I like see
ending is good.
Yeah, I was gonna say because you don't like that guitar, but I like that you can't be sure with that riff, and then as I know, I'm a fan of the quick endings, and we get 4 in a row. We get another down. Yeah, my favorite end. And I do like that when they do it live and that War Pigs thing they do, which that clip that I played of the was it the Austin City Limits performance, we're gonna do a watch along at the end, and I selected it because it's got that War Pigs thing in it, and that kind of like they do that. So I really like what they I really like they put that as the end. The down. They saw that was the obvious end. That was the only place it could end is the down, right? So yeah, I love it. Last question on it. Vocally, you said you don't like the BVs, obviously, but what about Alex's vocals?
I think Alex's vocals are really good here, and it's another one where live we talked about this during Sweet Dreams Tennessee, where it's impressive to hear him do it live because he pulls it off. And I think watching live clips of this, I think this is a good Alex vocal performance. I think he brings it here. Yeah.
Well, that Austin City Limits gig, I picked it because I thought his vocals were very strong on that performance. You can tell, and it is one that can go under the radar. Like Sweet Dreams TN is obviously impressive, right? You know that's an impressive vocal track, but ones like this can slip under the radar. But you do realize how strong that voice is, and it needed to be for it to work. You know, it's stronger than One for the Road, I think, vocally. Even though One for the Road
belting.
Works. Yeah, it's just got some strength, and obviously on the track it's doubled up apparently. So they added that to it, but yes, so slightly controversial there in the take on the music.
Whoa, hopefully, but I think leading. I mean, in an album that's so beloved and stuff, I'm kind of glad that we find because I feel like the past 3 tracks we've really been praising a lot of it. They're really big songs, so I think it's nice to get a little. Yeah, it's nice to get a little, controversy there.
Yeah, it's good. No, it's good for the podcast to have different opinions. Obviously, that is more interesting for people to listen to, and let us know your opinions as well. As I said earlier, so let us know. Maybe we have a little poll on this one about whether people think the 2 elements work or something like that on the episode for people to vote. And maybe we'll put it out on Instagram the week of the release and stuff.
Yeah.
But you'll lose.
Which feels very far away at this point because we're recording so far.
Yeah,
we're seeing you next month.
It's a month from now, right? So
about a month. Yeah.
So it'll be like the end of June, early July by the time this goes out. That's weird, isn't it? So it's May 22nd for anyone that knows, and it is May 22nd. So I'm going to say this: come on, the Spurs! There you go. I've got it in there. So. Okay, we'll slip into the covers band part of the show. It's a little reprieve from any controversy, although I am very scared because the lyrics of the song mean a lot to me, and I'm very worried about that discussion. I'm hoping you only have problems with the music and not the lyrics. That's what I'm hoping with. But before that, we'll get into our cover versions of the tracks. lyrics.
I'm gonna form a covers band and all.
It's part of the fun, as Alex would say. But why can't we all just get along? Bit of a change on this for you, didn't we? So do you want to kind of guide people through what happened with that?
Yeah, I originally picked the Black Keys. So we covered their album for Do I Want to Know, and when we did, I was quite surprised that it fit so well, the vibe and stuff like that. And so this one was a little rockier, and as we said, Alex gives it a little bit more in his vocal. So I wanted to pick something that was like a little gruffer, leaning into that rock edge. So I picked Black Keys, but we couldn't get a good sample from the AI, so I ultimately went with something kind of similar with Chris Cornell. I thought that would be kind of a similar vibe. And so
I
yeah,
think
I'm
the Black
curious to
Keys
see how
one was
this
a
one
good
turned
choice,
out.
though. I think that was a strong choice.
Yeah.
When you put it, I was a bit like, yeah, I could see that with him, Dan Albach doing that kind of thing, particularly with the with all of it. Really, you can do both, can't you? Like Alex, but yeah, Chris Cornell, interesting choice. And for the subscribers, we will have a listen to that now. I knew going into it that I wanted it to be a hip hop artist doing it.
Oh,
But
okay.
and I wanted it to be a female hip hop artist, and I'd kind of rejected it until last week when I successfully pretty much kind of did the first kind of one that kind of pretty much worked with a Mary J. Blige doing One for the Road. But I wanted a female artist that I thought could do a deeper tone that doesn't do like a Mariah Carey where it's like it's like someone that sings in a kind of slightly deeper tone as a woman, but also someone who I believe could do a song that had rock elements in it as well. And that led me to Miss Beyonce. Beyonce Knowles.
A very interesting choice. Very interesting
choice. Or Beyonce for any Carl Pilkington fans out there. But Beyonce, yeah. I just thought she hit a lot of the R&B style that I wanted. She ticked all the boxes. So because I don't think she did, like, she can go high, but I think she also has this kind of deeper tone when she sings as well sometimes. So I wanted to see if we could capture that. So let's have a listen to it and see if it worked. So yeah, if you want to hear it with Mr. Auerbach, Mr. Cornell, Mrs. Knowles, and a little bit of Mr. Osborne there at the end as well. Ozzy Osbourne, not Jeremy Osborne, the ex-UK Chancellor of the Exchequer. So if anyone wondering. So that's the covers passion. If you want to hear those covers again, subscribe, baby. Patreon.com/Arctic Podcast. Okay, so the lyrics. Here we go. Before we talk about the lyrics, I just want to read some quotes on the lyrics of this song, okay? Because this is something I've been talking about for a while. And to be honest, when we started the podcast, I've said before, I had certain songs that I was looking forward to covering. And Arabella lyrically was one of them that was like, okay, I'll do the pod because I'll get to do that, you know. And I was kind of thinking, is anyone going to listen to this? Is it going to work? But I thought, okay, if nothing else, I get to talk about these. So Alec said, I remember when I first started writing songs and writing lyrics, I really wanted to be able to write a song like I Am the Walrus, and I found it very difficult. You listen to that and it sounds like it's all nonsense, but it's really difficult to write that sort of thing and make it compelling. Lennon definitely had a knack for that. He's got a way of leading you somewhere with these unusual words that don't make sense, but also making perfect fucking sense. And NME picked up on this during their review of AM, and they said, Alex's wordplay echoes the surrealism of I Am the Walrus All Come Together, announcing that Arabella's got some interstellar gator skin boots and a helter-skelter around her little finger, and I ride it endlessly, before slamming into a vocal delivery lifted straight from the chorus of Lennon's 1975 Old Grey Whistle Test recording of Stand By Me. In keeping with the influences of the record, there's a whiff of Eminem in the way he rolls his elongated sentences across a few lines of melody, finding rhymes in the middle of lines where less gifted songwriters wouldn't even think to look. Cool, very true. Speaking about Lemon to NME last year, Alex explained how difficult he found trying to write in such a way. He said it's all a jumble, but it's not just that. It paints you a picture and puts you in this place. Right here, and then he goes on to say about the quote of leading you somewhere with these unusual words that don't make sense, but also make perfect fucking sense. And NME said, right here, he's nailed it. Unsurprisingly, they're Alex's favorite lyrics on the album, but they're not the best. NME said so, but they're Alex's favorite, which is interesting. Yeah. So for me, I've always had this thing. We've talked about it a lot. You'll have heard me when you were a listener, and you probably heard me when we're on some episodes together say this thing of, he does this thing like what he was talking about there, where he takes something real that lesser songwriters would just say, and he takes it and he twists it and he puts it in a metaphor, and then he twists it again and he says it to you, and even though it's perfectly relatable, and he doesn't take the easy route to the line. So, for example, a lot of less gifted people would say, she's got me wrapped around her finger, or I do what she said, or whatever. He takes that and he twists it and he wraps it in a metaphor and he twists it again, and it comes out, and a helter skelter around her little finger, and I ride it endlessly. And that's just, for me, it's just like the peak of his powers as a songwriter at this point, about how he would take a simple line about love or sex or whatever and just turn it into something else completely, that just like it still gets the exact point across, but in a really smart way. And that's kind of why I love this song. But yeah, before we get like into each lyric and delivery, like, go on, Break My Heart. What do you think about the lyrics of this song?
Oh no, okay. Well, I thought that was since those were the first lines. I thought we were like kind of getting into it or whatever. I would say again that this is probably, so I was saying like 50-50 on the other song. I think I like more of the lyrics in this on this song than I don't. So it's not a 50-50 split. However, you had previously brought this up in That's Where You're Wrong, where there was a line, crushing up a bundle of love.
Ugh.
Yeah. So there are maybe more. There's definitely one on here, maybe more than one line in here that gives me that feeling where I really don't like the lines. But for a majority of it, I do generally like the lyrics. I don't think I like them as much as you do, but I respect a lot of what's happening here.
I just think they're unbelievably good, because I just compare it to everything else that you hear, and I just don't hear this kind of talent in these kind of songs. Because what he's done is he's made it it's simple, so it's a perfect single. Like, to have a hit and a single on it has to be simple enough for people to follow the lyrics, right?
Yeah.
But he's done that, but he's not just
made
taken
it weird.
route one. He's made it weird, and I think that makes. I think that line of John Lennon that Alex said, he's got a way of leading you somewhere with these unusual words that don't make sense, but they do make perfect sense. Because I think, although these words are weird, right, we're not going to have any ambiguity on what he means with any of them, are we? Like, it's he may be saying odd things, but it's straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
It means, to me anyway, it makes perfect sense. I don't have any ambiguity on what any of the lines mean.
I don't think I ever wondered what some of the lines mean, but I did always kind of wonder why, because it's not just with this song. I was always kind of curious about what what the tie-in with the interstellar play was, because like
Really?
I want to know, I mean, not necessarily like what it meant, but why he was using suddenly in the fourth track of the album, space is such a strong theme in all of his metaphors. It's not just one it's not just suddenly like interstellar gator skin boots. It's there's a lot of things. She takes a dip in my daydreams, and there's a lot of like retro futurism going on here.
I think two reasons would be, one is she's out of this world, and he's had the idea of she's out of this world, and he's gone, well, I'm going to take that, because that's a common girl from another planet, for example, a very famous rock song about a sexy girl, right? Which is a similar lyrical song to this. It's about you've heard that, right? Another girl, another planet. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
So like, he's taken the idea of she's out of this world, and he's decided to play on that in the song. And then the second part is he decided to mask a song about Ariel by pairing her name with Barbarella, a film about space. So you have to know a little bit about that, I guess. True. But there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But like, so he's pairing that film about a sexy space woman with the lyrics, and I think that's okay, because it's okay for him to reference something in a song and for you to have to do a bit of homework maybe to fully understand it. But I think even if you don't do that homework, that's just art, right? Sometimes you have to do a bit of like, like a film. But even without that, I just think you have to understand it's out of this world. So let's get into the lines maybe. But Arabella's got some interstellar gator skin boots. He's taken a portion of reality. Obviously, Ariel Vandenberg must have some alligator skin boots that she wears that he finds attractive when she wears them, right? And he's playing on the interstellar there by saying it makes him feel out of this world. She's out of this world. She's so sexy that you feel, because you've had that, right? When someone,
well,
is so
also
attractive.
too, yeah, I have a different
Where did
maybe
she come
take.
from? Okay.
Well, yes. So I had a different take too, which is actually clever, which actually led me to this thought before knowing about like the specific Barbarella and stuff like that. Is this being, we said, sounds very much like an LA type of album, even before about just the feelings of it and stuff like this. This very first line and a lot of this first verse really set up the feeling of those cheesy sci-fi films that were made in the desert in like the 50s and 60s and stuff like that. It kind of sets the setting where it's the desert, which is so opposite and far from what you think about is like space, but they're like, oh, we're on Mars and stuff like that. And they got the blonde bombshell with her big hair and her boobs out, and the aliens are coming in and stuff. So it does. So the gator skin boots makes, because a lot of people walk around the desert in boots because they're snakes, and it's dangerous to leave your ankles and your legs exposed to snake bites. So it really does kind of set that retro futurism of the 50s, which he loves a lot in his songwriting and stuff like that. So it does make sense.
Yeah, and obviously the Barbarella is all that, right? That film is basically that what you just described as well, isn't it? So
exactly, yeah.
Playing into it, and but I do like to think that he has taken a part of reality and put that in there. So Ariel Vandenberg may wear gator skin, because gator skin is a thing in America, right? People wear gator skin stuff, right? Don't they? I'm sure
not common, but like in places like the desert, you would wear a high type of boot. It's tough, exactly.
Yeah,
and stylish in some capacity, I guess.
So I the way, and I always try and put myself in his mindset, and I think after years, hopefully, of being a kind of student of his work, that you can kind of do that. In that, I could just imagine him thinking, right. One of the things I remember about her, maybe the first time we were dating, is that she would wear these gator skin boots, and she looked particularly attractive in them. And I'm going to pair that with the theme of the song. I just think he has this way of blending reality, which is what and fiction, and like that's why sometimes we don't know whether he's on this side of the fence or he's on this side of the fence, because he just has this way of, is that a real thing that happened, or did he actually go up to the girl in that, or is he fantasizing about going up to the girl? So I do think, and I think he just pinned the song down with the idea that she's out of this world, or she makes you feel like like what you said there about futuristic and being on another planet. I think he's equating that feeling to being attracted to someone and falling for someone, right? You feel like suddenly you're on another planet. You could be in LA or in Korea or Manchester, but you find love with someone, you may as well be somewhere else, because suddenly everything changes. You may even be playing on that idea of that he does before about a place becoming different when you fall in love with someone, right? So, and it does have that. I found that when you fall for someone, like, you could be somewhere where you've been a million times, but suddenly it feels different, right? That you're there with them. So I just think, he's taken that concept and he's put it in space, which is obviously something that we're going to head towards quite soon in a whole album, but in a different way, obviously. But yeah, I just think that's what he's doing there. And then the hell's going around a little thing when I ride it endlessly. I mean, I just think he didn't have to put it that way, and it's brilliant that he did. That's my kind of thought on that one.
Well, again, going back to my original idea too with the boots, is Helter Skelter is often associated later with Manson, even though it was, but which is another desert LA tie-in as well.
It's associated with what? Sorry.
With Manson. The Manson clan.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because this song does make me think of LA, particularly later on with the Horizon tries and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's funny that they completely deny that influence, isn't it, on the album? They feel it could have been written anywhere. And I was trying to think on that concept. Yeah, the artist isn't always right about the art.
This song specifically feels so rooted in
and the next
idea,
one,
the location of LA. Yeah.
And I had that thought with the last one that they were in a motel, right, with the crack that's in the blind, so it is ingrained in it. But I do often wonder, am I getting that from the lyrics, or am I getting that from my external knowledge that they had all moved to LA and it was a big part of the band during Suck It and See as well? But I think their reason is, yeah, it's hard, isn't it? I don't know whether it's hard to know whether
gator skin boots, Helter Skelter, Barbarella swimsuit, silver swimsuit, like those are all things that scream.
But
the LA swimming scene, movie scene.
To play devil's advocate, because I'm obviously someone that's quite obsessed with LA and the movie scene and stuff. But I have never associated, until you just said it, the Helter Skelter with the Manson stuff. And
really?
Obviously, Arctic Monkeys are from where I'm from, but know a lot about LA. I've always associated with the roller coaster, right? That's what he's talking about. You do? You get that?
No, I thought it was the Beatles. I thought it was the Beatles reference.
Oh, okay. So you don't know about what a Helter Skelter is? I didn't even.
So is there a famous British roller coaster that's a Helter?
I'm gonna show you a picture. Yeah, there's a famous British. And this might actually maybe you have no idea what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the line. Then you're like, what the fuck's he going on about? Let me show you on the screen that, because it's very important to the lyric, I think. Can you see that? Is that coming up? So the Helter Skelter in England is this, and that's why he says it's wrapped around a little finger and I ride it endlessly. So he's equating being wrapped around. So this actually, you probably must have thought, what the fuck's he talking about a minute ago? So
obviously the metaphor of being wrapped around her finger is very clear, but the Helter Skelter thing was I was like, that's a LA association again with the desert and the chaotic nature of their relationship and who she is and stuff like that. That's what I always associated it with.
I've never because obviously that's why I'm saying he could have just said I'm wrapped around a little finger. But he's turned it into a metaphor that's what I was banging on about. By doing this ride, obviously. So I didn't know that was. I thought Helter Skelter was an international thing. I didn't realize it was just a thing here in the UK.
No.
So there you go. So there you go. You have learned something today.
Yeah, hopefully a lot of people have. I hope my ignorance has given insight to the masses.
My ignorance in not bringing it up was that I thought Helter Skelters were a thing that every country had as a roller coaster, not just here in the UK.
No, I've never seen anything like that.
Wow, well there you go. But yeah, so that's, I think for me, that's what I was trying to say, which hopefully now will come across better for anyone that didn't know that, is that he could have just said wrapped around a little finger and I ride it in his sleeve, but he's turned it into a metaphor for this ride that's wrapped around and going down it. And I'd say it could also be a Beatles reference, but he has said he's accidentally referenced songs before, doesn't he? I feel like for me the ride makes more sense as a direct reference.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now that I've seen it, because it looks like a finger.
Yeah, it's that. But again, to have that thought though is why it impresses me so much. To turn it into that is cool. Wow, that's really interesting, because I didn't to know that there's people.
I always associated that as another reference to LA and the desert. I thought this whole verse was just swimming in the desert LA scene where you in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that place where they're at and that old that's what I associate it with. Yeah, exactly.
Don't get me started on Once Upon a Time in America. We'll be here for 6 hours. Bloody love that film. But I should have said, really, because my own assuming that it was a known thing, but I should have said a ride when I said it, and then you probably would have gone, what do you mean ride? So yeah, it's good job I brought up the Manson thing again. If I'd just left it, then you might not have known. Or if you hadn't have had a difference, we probably wouldn't have even said it. We would have just assumed.
Yeah.
But the next line is she's got a Barbarella silver swimsuit, which basically is, again, the swimsuit. She's sexy in it, out of this world. It's the Barbarella one was hot. It's all linked in there, isn't it? This is I really like the next line. And when she needs to shelter from reality, she takes a dip in my daydreams. I love that because he's done stuff like that before. Obviously, this is in the Alex wheelhouse. But I like the idea that what I like about it is it puts, because it's a song that's about a woman and she's sexy, but there's no depth to her, right? She's just a sexy woman. But this adds a little bit of depth. It adds a little bit of humanizing her, or a bit of frailness to her, that she's not just this sexy woman that exists for that. If she needs to shelter from reality, she takes a different. And I know he's using it in this other way as well, but there's this nice. I think it's quite a sweet line, that bit as well. And when she needs to shelter from reality, she takes, like, she can't always handle reality. Like, she's not.
Well, it's also him thinking
machine.
about her, but in a sensitive way, because she's in his daydream, so he's thinking about her. So it's not like he's just objectifying her. She's like there,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice.
It's got a tenderness to it, a little tenderness to it. Yeah.
She's not just the kind of sexy space woman that you sit down and say, I think I'd quite like to make love to you. That would be...
yes.
But I really like. And obviously, it plays on. I think we talked about it last line. It's a bit kind of like that idea, that chat up line. Girl, are you tired? You've been running around my mind all day and stuff like that. It's that kind of concept, isn't it? I think he did a similar line in One for the Road last week, actually. But I'll do this bit as a chunk because it does all kind of link, doesn't it? My days end best when the sunset gets itself behind that little lady sitting on the passenger side. It's much less picturesque without her catching the light. The horizon tries, but it's just not as kind on the eyes as Arabella. Oh, as Arabella. I think, for me as a line, this is one of my favourite parts of the song, because that idea of the day being at its best when because everyone always says the sunset's beautiful, like when you go on holiday, or if you like you live in a nice country, then you get these like nice sunsets, and again that makes you think of LA and the sunset going over the sea and you being there, like that sunset. But that idea that the day's better when the sunset gets behind her. It's not about the sunset being this picturesque thing. It's her being there in front of it. And then also it's less picturesque without her in the light of it. And I love the idea that I love it when he makes... She
makes the sunset special. She makes the sunset picturesque, which is not how people typically associate. People think a sunset is picturesque.
It's picturesque, but she makes it even better being in front of it.
Yeah.
And I love it when what's the word when you take an inanimate object and you put a
human element to it. Personify it. Yeah.
The personification of the horizon. I love that idea that the horizon's trying to be perfect, but it's just not as kind on the eyes as Arabella. I think that for me is a fantastic line. Just the idea of, it's trying its best to be, because it is regarded as one of the most beautiful things that a human being can see, right? The sunset on a beautiful horizon. Whenever you go on holiday and you're in a bar overlooking the sea, and I always want to be out at sunset. When I'm on holiday, I always want to be there when the sun's going down, or on a boat or something like that when the sun's going down. It's just beautiful. But the idea that that's trying its best, it's okay, even though
but
society
it's not
is perfect. It's not as kind on the eye, and kind on the eyes. Is that a kind of British phrase, kind on the eyes, or is that a
no? We use that
phrase?
too.
We use that. Okay,
it's not kind on the eyes. Yeah.
I have to make sure I double check everything now after Hell Let's Go.
Well, I wanted to check one of these lines with you. So one of the problems that I have, and I don't know if it's my personal bias, because I can't imagine British people saying it, but maybe you do. So I don't like so I really like these lines too. They're really good. But the piece that I was saying, like, kind of gives me a little bit of the kind of cringe vibe was that little lady. I don't like that little lady. It sounds very like, little lady, what you doing, little lady? Like, it sounds very like southern backwoods. Do British people say little lady?
Do you know what my interpretation of that is? It's similar to yours, but it works for me because from a British point of view, anyway, it sounds like a cool cowboy in a western saying.
Oh no, okay.
So that's something that we like. So I like it. I like that little lady, and I think it's not creepy. It's sweet. I think they get away with it. I think it is. It could. I mean, it could also just be little lady, right? It could just be that she's a little lady. Maybe he hasn't even thought about the phrase, but for me, it's the cool cowboy saying it, like not like a guy now in Southern America with a MAGA hat on going, "Hey, little lady, wow, little lady, why don't you?" But like,
just
Same with Gator Skin Boots,
that's
right? They're very southern, you know, in my head.
Yeah,
Gators.
I think it just I think that's a personal bias of like the little, hey little lady. It's like not even, I'm not even talking about from today, even from like a retro vibe. It's got a kind of like, I don't know, I don't, and it doesn't sound natural for Alex, I guess. Like it's hard for me to imagine any British person very naturally saying little lady, or anyone, to be honest, saying little lady in a kind of smooth, cool way. Oh, I don't like it.
I think for me, it depends who's saying it. So when like Clint Eastwood in his prime is saying "little lady," the woman, no woman, when he says it, no woman goes like, "Oh, you perv, like, how can you say that?" They swoon when a handsome guy like Alex is saying it in the way he looked in AM. They don't give a shit if some fat creepy dude in Florida with some gator skin boots and a fucking gun and a mag out and going like, "Hey little lady," then yeah, it's weird. So I think you get away with a lot if you're an attractive musician, right? I mean, Ed Sheeran had an actual hit song called "Little Lady."
Did he? I didn't know that. Oh, I don't like that.
Gets played at funerals. Like, I can't remember the context of the song, but I remember that. Yeah. So it's
okay.
Yeah. Apparently, the original title of Three Men and a Baby was Three Men and a Little Lady. It's interesting. But yeah, that is about a baby, so weirder. But yeah, I think they do. I think you get away with it because of the style of the song. I think that's why. You know what? If the song didn't go rocky and it stayed in hip hoppy and he said "little lady," I don't think it works. Honestly, I really don't. But I think he just about gets away with it. But we should say as well, by the way, it's the first time this album that because for people that are new to the show, we did have a theme running where we've noticed that cars and bikes and any kind of motor vehicle come up a lot in Alex's songwriting and the kind of mythology of the band, even to the point where they did an album called The Car, obviously, is why we kind of started thinking about it. And Suck It and See had a lot of car and references and stuff. But this is the first time on AM where we get to use it because he does say sitting on the passenger side, which obviously implies that they're in a car or at least a boat or something, you know, at least a motor vehicle of some kind, I would imagine, like speedboat.
Something that's got seats that's moving,
Yeah. So we get to do our car alarm. So I wonder when the next one will be. And One for the Road doesn't count before we get any messages because he just says road. It could mean, you know, anything.
Also, would you consider Little Lady to be an Americanism?
I guess so. I have heard British people using it though. So
oh really?
I don't
okay.
know. But I think my initial take is the cool Western guy. So I guess in that sense, and that's probably where Alex has got it from, right? Because he's into his kind of Americana as well.
Cowboy movies. So. Been watching cowboy films.
But yeah, I always feel a bit of a kinship with Alex and his obsession with Americana and mine. So putting myself in that headspace, I would say he's probably gone down that road with it as well. So you're quite right that as well as having a Britishism for Helter Skelter, we should have an Americanism for Little Lady.
From a place they call America.
In the
golden age. He gets so into it.
Yeah, man, the Tranquility watch-alongs are going to be great. So apparently the correct definition of little lady can be a term of endearment of a young girl, a wife, or fiance affectionately referred to. Yeah. So it does also have a meaning of it does have a place in an affection of our hearts. But yeah, it is old school. It is old school. I didn't think that was a lyric you're going to have umbrage with. I thought there was another one. Oh. Have you got another one? Or is that it? I thought
maybe. Well, we haven't gotten there yet. It's possible. Maybe when we get to the bridge that I don't like so much, so we'll find out.
Yeah.
I think there is one.
I think I can on some of the bridge defend it from a British point of view. And how we see America. So I think I can try and defend what you might have. But we'll get to that. Before we get to that, we've got a verse. We've got Arabella's got. Oh no, sorry. At the end. Sorry, end of the chorus. Sorry. You might have tapped into your mind and soul. You can't be sure. So he does put. I love the ambiguity. He does have a little bit here of the One for the Road stuff about is she into me or not, doesn't he? Because he's saying you might have tapped into her mind and soul like she's tapped into yours, but you can't be sure. There's a bit of ambiguity there. I like that. And I like the way they do the vocal performance on that, and they kind of have it a little bit spacey as it goes into the verse, and you can't, mind and soul. I like that, yeah.
I will say, when I first heard this song, I had this distinct memory of thinking the line was, she spinal tapped into your mind and soul. I don't know why I distinctly remember that mistake. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was like, wait, what? She spinal tapped into your mind and soul. I just remember thinking
it's not beneath Alex to throw in a Spinal Tap reference, I reckon, to a song. So yeah, Spinal Tap 2 coming to a theatre near you soon. But would you believe? But yeah, no, that's funny. It's very funny. There's quite a few. I think there's a few lyrics on Tranquility that I didn't know at first for a while that I thought was something else, because he's speaking in a certain way, isn't he, with his lyrics? So it's going to be fun. This is probably the album where I've had least ambiguity over the lyrics, because he's quite clear in his performance.
I think so. Most part.
So it's interesting, because we have had quite a few before where I didn't know for a while what that lyric was. So, but here we get the verse. Arabella's got a 70s head. Let's just say that for a second. So I've always taken that to mean that kind of sexy 70s woman when things were a bit free love and a bit open and people were becoming a bit more liberated. How have you always seen that?
I always took it as like the like following the movie style of like the hair, like the bombshell.
This might be
like I was thinking about like the bombshell big movie star blonde chic hair or whatever, kind of like the Barbarella swimsuit, like putting it in a certain kind of context. Sure. That's how I always took it.
Yeah,
interesting. I didn't think about your perspective. Yeah,
my perspective. Do you have that way of using? I'm trying to explain this ahead as like, if somebody has a certain mindset here, we'd say he's got like someone say about me, they go, oh, he's got a film head. He's a film head.
No, I don't. Oh, well, yeah, he's a film head. We do. Yeah, he's a film head. We do say that. Egghead, like egghead, smart person. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I'd always, you could probably, it could be both, I suppose, but 70s head, yeah, because Arabella in the film. But yeah, I'd always taken it to mean she has, and paired with the next line is why I think that. So
that's true. That's true.
In that she's got this 70s feel and she's sexually liberated. She's got this very old school, but she's a modern lover as well. She's not old school in that sense, and that's kind of where I went with that. And both of those jarring things of her being a kind of 70s old school type person, which a lot of how do I say this? Girls can be like girls. I've met girls in, especially you seem to see it a lot with American and LA, like girls that have this kind of old school style to them, but they're very modern as well at the same time. And one of my favorite lyrics on Tranquility will be I never thought I'd meet so many Lolas, which is just a great line, which I love. But this just idea of this type of girl that she's old school and she's got this kind of style to her, but she's very much a modern lover. And because of those two jarring ideas, it's an exploration being with her. And she's made of outer space, which I like.
That's a cool idea too. It's an exploration. She's made of outer space, like exploring outer space.
Space exploration.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's cool. I like that line.
I like that idea of, because that obviously, as we said, he's playing on the idea of her being like from another planet, that feeling that she seems like she just dropped onto the earth and she's, where did she, that thing to each dreams the end, the idea that you were here all along is ridiculous. It's almost like she dropped here on earth and she's so exciting to me that it's like she's not human, it's like she's no one I've ever met before. And that idea of her being made of outer space, because outer space you think of this kind of ethereal sort of it's hard to put into words, isn't it, what he means? But that's, you see, that is exactly the quote of he's leading you somewhere that doesn't make sense, but at the same time it makes exact fucking sense. So I can't explain what he means by that, but we both know what we're trying to say, right? We know what he's trying to say with it.
But however, I would say, to be fair, especially once you explained, I think, for instance, the helter skelter around her little finger is a lot more clever. And this I feel like the first verse is a lot more clever. And in the second verse, particularly these last few lines, really feels like he's just trying to make that metaphor fit. Like specifically, but the last two lines, I feel like he's really trying hard to keep that going without really any specific tied to it. So the exploring her and exploration, I think it's an exploration she's made of outer space. I think that is good and fits, but then the next two lines feel like he's really just continuing to try to stretch that.
I think we have a huge difference on that quote of the John Lennon thing, because I really I think, yeah, lips are like the galaxy's edge, okay. Quite straightforward, maybe. But her kiss, the color of a constellation falling into place, I think is a brilliant line, and I understand what he means. And it's not an easy line to write, in my opinion. I don't think I've heard anyone say it that way. Like, because when you see a constellation falling into place, or our imaginings of it, at least, that we have as a society, right? A constellation falling into place, the videos that you see, that explosion of color, and that idea of kissing her opens this like, when you see that, when you see a video of like, or a kind of I don't know what you call it, like a graphic made of constellation, like this burst of life and sound and color, and it's that idea of, like when you kiss someone and you feel that explosion, he's just changed that into space. And I think that's all he's done, and that's why I think it works for me. Is he could just say, when she kisses me, her kisses put creases in the rain, for example, another kissing. But it's that way of that, when you kiss someone for the first time and you get that explosion of feeling in you that we all want, right? That feeling. And when you get that, but to put that into that idea of the constellation falling into place, and also, it doesn't feel forced to me. It feels like it fits with what he's been saying from the beginning. It's not like the start of the song started with no space references and then he's just crammed one in now. It feels like he had that the whole way. And also, because of the Barbarella and the futuristic in the space, 70s head, modern lover, all feels in the same vibe. Like this, the lyrics of this song are very 70s to me. It all feels like it's entrenched in the 70s. And with them taking a War Pig 70s track with it as well, that's why it all works thematically for me as a piece.
I think it's almost this microcosm of what he later said was kind of like a problem with himself, where he was like, I just kept writing about a woman, and like, I can come up with these new metaphors of like, her kiss puts creases in the rain, and then I can come up with this other metaphor that her kiss is like a constellation. But at the end of the day, I'm really just keep saying the same thing, and I'm like stretching myself to find new ways to say that same thing. And this is almost that kind of like microcosm of it, where, oh, she's got the gator skin boots and they're like from outer space, and then, and she's in exploration, she's like made of outer space, and then, oh, and her lips are also, they're like a galaxy, and then like when I kiss her, it's almost like, it almost feels like this microcosm of like stacking these almost like same kind of things again and again and again, to where by the end of it, I'm like a little exhausted by it, I think.
I think for me, it's not past the point. This is the point that he talks about. I think this is the culmination of what he's built towards. And I think he nails so many lines in this, for me, that this is where it ended.
Yeah, like, this is like after Arabella stopped.
Even for the rest of this album,
because we keep going.
Well, I don't think there's that many metaphors in the others when you really think about it in this way. When you really like,
we'll have to see. Yeah,
and then we had kind of Sweet Dreams. We said on that episode that was like so straightforward. It was like he'd taken the metaphors to its max, and I think Arabella is that end point where he's done it. For me, he's mastered it here. We Suck It and See in Arabella, he's mastered that. And then Sweet Dreams to the End, it was very personal, very straightforward. But again, some metaphors in there that he used and we get in a very different way. And then after that, he was kind of done with that. He can't do that anymore. He reached the pinnacle where it almost got too personal and too overtly out there, like, for him. And I think, there's only one attempt at that in Tranquility, and I don't think there's any attempts at it in The Car. There's one attempt at it with one song, which apparently is a love song that I didn't know was a love song for ages, and then apparently it is, though. It's the one attempt at that, which is interesting because people don't like it. But I just, for me, it's this isn't too much for me. This is perfection, and I guess that's where we differ. I've always cited this as like his feat of finally getting those metaphors right, and I go back to what I said before, which is because no one else is doing it. No one else has the talent to do it. I never hear anyone doing stuff like this. Like to
And
put
well,
stuff
and
in
it's
this
weird.
way,
So to reference to make a good reference about my point that I said, let's put a pin in this, because this isn't the first time I have strongly disagreed with the fans. Because another one that this really reminds me of, from my perspective and from Alex's perspective, Alex is usually very humble and I would say maybe a little insecure about his own work, where we think a lot of it is very brilliant and he is very reluctant to say so. The only other time I remember him specifically saying, like, I think those are the best lyrics, and this being a very specific case of Cornerstone. So Cornerstone, he specifically said, I want to write a country song. And he sat down and he thought, and he said, I'm going to try to do this. And then later, when he is asked about what do you think is the best lyrics on Humbug, he ultimately said, I don't know, I guess Cornerstone. And now we have this instance where he is making another reference saying, like, I would love to write a song that is like in this way. I'm going to sit down and try.
John Lennon.
Yeah.
Sorry. There's a bit of an error there in that, like, maybe the way I read it out. He said that years ago, before AM, that John Lennon quote.
Before AM, yeah.
Way before, and NME are just taking it and saying that he nailed it in this song.
Accomplished
it.
Like, okay,
he's never put those two things together and said, I tried to do
with
that with
Arabella.
Song. So,
okay.
Other people have externally done it, so we don't know if he did do that.
But the same connection exists of, like, where he says, oh, I think Cornerstone are my best lyrics, and oh, I think Arabella are my best lyrics. And actually I think Cornerstone is a little cheesy as well.
Wow. You're brilliant. And Cornerstone lyrics are brilliant. What do you mean? Like,
well, because remember, I compare it to, I always said it was, well, I always said it was The Bakery Part 2, and The Bakery felt very heartfelt and natural to me. Like, The Bakery feels very sincere, whereas Cornerstone feels like an act almost. It doesn't feel as sincere. And in this way, I kind of feel like this is also a bit of a kind of act. Like we talked about the previous songs where they sound very confident, but when you actually break it down, they're full of this actual kind of insecurity. And I feel like that's where Alex naturally lies, but then he has this persona that he creates and he puts on, and I feel like this looks more like persona Alex than it does insecure natural Alex. That's how I feel.
For me, and this lies in something that I hate that people. No, I'm not going to go at you. I'm just saying that I hate that people.
Yeah.
People. So to give an example of how I would connect the dots, people, like, at the minute it's happening to us, right? The show The Last of Us. I don't know if you watch it. Obviously, a lot of people do watch it, and people are having this big thing about how one of the main characters, Ellie, is kind of joking around, but then at some point she's sad, and people say, like, well, is she sad or is she annoyed or is she happy? You can't be all those things. And I hate when people do that. Why do we expect characters in films to be so much more straight line than us? Because as a human being, it doesn't work that way. So if I put myself, like, if I'm being blunt, I'm a very insecure person. I struggle with a lot of stuff like that, okay? And particularly in the past. But confident-wise, in other situations, I can be very different. I'm too...
Sure.
You can be different things at once. And I think Alex is someone who, like me, like, can feel insecure, but when a girl's into me, for example, if I don't think a girl likes me and I'm unsure, like One for the Road type style, I'm very insecure about it, and I'm like, oh god, and I panic about it and overthink it and stuff like that, like he does. When a girl does show that she likes me and I know she likes me, I'm a very different person. I'm very confident. I'm very outgoing. I'm very, you know what I mean? When I'm given the confidence to do it. So for me, Arabella is just that she's making him feel this way.
You're confident.
It's not an act. Yeah, it's confidence that she's giving him, which is kind of empowering from her point of view, right? You know, that's kind of how I see it. And from Cornerstone point of view, I think with that, I think Bakery's more endearing because he wrote it as a young guy, and it's very sweet in its kind of like childish nature of, you know, I saw her in the rounders, and all that kind of stuff, you know. But with Cornerstone, there is that edge to it. But I think I love the idea of you going to different pubs and trying to spot her. It's kind of, I don't see it as an act. I see it as something we've all done, right? I think I talked about on the episode where we haven't done that exact thing, but he's playing on the idea that I've had it when I've broken up with someone and I've kind of regretted it, where I've purposely gone out to somewhere where I know her and her friends are to try and orchestrate. People do that.
Yeah.
And he's just taking
of course.
He's just taking that to the next level for a song in the way that a writer would, to extend that kind of idea and kind of make it bigger and kind of funnier and darker in a way. It's quite a dark concept, the song, in the end, you know. As I've said before, surreal almost. So I don't have a problem with him being different people in different songs and feeling like it's an act. I just think it's a mindset at the time, right? We're all different, and our opinions are different. I think when, particularly for me, like when I'm writing a script, I have to write different characters and I have to try and put myself in other people's mindsets, because otherwise all the characters are going to sound exactly the same. Kind of like, even though I love Tarantino, all the characters are exactly the same, right? They're the same person speaking in this Tarantino way. But I think they're like really good films that you watch. You have to have different voices in there and try and tap into both. So I think whether it's him personally is more confident, or whether he just can tap into that mindset of someone else when he's writing and a character that he writes, I think, I don't have a problem with that, really, ultimately.
Yeah. I do like the point of view from where you said of like somebody gives you confidence and so he can feel in that way.
Because I've had that.
But I do think it's interesting that two of the songs that like fans really love are the two I don't like, and they just happen to be two of the ones that Alex also confidently comes out and says, like, these are my favorite on the album. It's like, oh, that's quite interesting. I wonder why they just naturally don't resonate with me as much. Because let's remember, he also handpicked The Bad Thing to be on Favorite Worst Nightmare. So we know that he has found.
I think that's unfair. I don't know The Bad Thing lyrics, to be fair. From the song shit. But Wilson, maybe you don't like that, like, because you said about the style and the maybe you don't like that lyrics being that way, you know, like
maybe
a certain style, maybe, whereas obviously this one always connected with me instantly, you know. And Cornerstone, you know, not my favorite on Humbug. I don't think it's the best lyrics on Humbug, but I do think it's an amazing I do think the lyrics are great, you know. So yeah, maybe like we all have taste, right? Like there's some like for example, I'll say one now that's everyone likes and popular, and I think The Shawshank Redemption is a terrible film. And no one else has that opinion. No one else has that opinion. I think it's fucking cheesy and awful and terrible. Everything that you said about being cheesy, right? That's what I think about The Shawshank Redemption. I think it is so cheesy and unbelievably crap that I can't believe it. But everyone else in the world thinks it's one of the best films ever made. So, you know, we all have our kind of specific taste. Even Forrest Gump, like, I find a bit cheesy, you know what I mean? That particular director does both, actually. I just don't like his films. I find him quite cheesy a lot. He gets away with Back to the Future, but yeah, so yeah, we all have a taste, right? And it can jar with the masses sometimes, even if everyone likes it, you know. It's for the same reason I hate the show Ted Lasso, but everyone seems to love it because I think it's cheesy and awful and ruining comedy.
It.
Yeah, don't bother. So yeah, we're all have something that we're rail against, right?
All right, let's get to.
you Justin has fell into the darkness on his video because
I did
because of it's the ghost of this song having a go at you for ripping it apart. So yeah, let's finish off the lyrics. So in a cheetah print coat, just a slip underneath it, I hope. Bit cheeky, a little bit naughty, that line.
Okay.
I thought you'd have a problem with that. I thought that was going to be the thing you had a problem with.
That's not really
it's like
the
a bit
one...
overtly sexual, you know, just a slip underneath it.
Yeah. Actually, I think that one's okay. Yeah, that one's okay.
I think they get away with it because it's kind of hot and because Held is just a slip as a backing vocal, it kind of hides the line a little bit. Now here we go. Asking if I can have one of those organic cigarettes that she smokes.
Yeah.
So I'd never heard of organic cigarettes before this song. And I think it's... I mean, they are a thing, right?
That's another thing that reminds me of Westerns. I mean, so it reminds me of Westerns, LA, and the desert, because in old westerns you see like cowboys, again, little lady, rolling their own cigarettes, right? That was like that's a thing from the past, so it does have a retro feel. It also makes me think of LA, because in LA people are much more like health conscious, so of course they're going to smoke organic cigarettes, which is ridiculous within itself, so that is kind of funny.
Yeah, I think they're just growing without pesticides and stuff, right? That's the
so it just makes me think of like hand rolled, self rolled like cigarettes or whatever. You buy the tobacco and you roll it yourself. Yeah.
There was part of me that sometimes wondered: is it a joke about weed? Is it
and that too, probably.
Because I got and that's what made me think of the line from the early days in the original Riot Van, which is you had one of those funny cigarettes, and it just always reminded me of that like kind of organic cigarette, funny cigarette. He's played with that kind of concept before, you know. So yeah, whether organic is that or it's just some kind of, because let's be honest, the LA is there because Ariel Vandenberg is an LA born actress, or not born there, but she's an LA actress. So she is from LA, so she's brought the LA into it. If anything's going to it, you know, in his, even if he doesn't realize he's singing about LA, his experiences with her are in LA. So more than any other song on the album, they can't deny the LA-ness because the character and the moments are set in LA. They have to be, because that's where he's been with her, right? You know, she's not bullying around Sheffield with him. I think the reason why they reject the music being from LA is because they wrote "Are You Mine" in Sheffield when they did Evil Twin and everything.
Sure,
so
to them,
that's
fair,
to them that style wasn't born in LA. It's just, but yeah, you know, doesn't matter where you are in the world if your mindset is somewhere else, you know. But I like it. It's a cool line. I think for me, it's cool because here's the reason I find these lines and all these lines cool is because I fantasize about being in LA. And I used to, when I was younger, want to be in LA and fall in love with an LA woman and an actress. You kidding me? The dream, right? So, especially when I was younger. So that idea of her smoking and giving you a cigarette is just sexy. I mean, whatever you think about smoking, I was a smoker. I gave up about 5 years ago. I haven't had one since. But whenever I see someone smoking on TV, I just think it's fucking cool and I want to smoke. Like, I see it straight away and I go, I want to smoke so bad. Like, it's grim and it's horrible, but it is ingrained in us that it's kind of hot. I don't know what it is, especially women smoking, you know. But then we get wrap her lips round a Mexican Coke. Now, I wanted to ask you, right, is Mexican Coke a term that's used in America for, because what it is it's a glass bottle of Coke, right?
Yeah, but also too, people say that, and I don't know, there is the taste because of like the sugar that's used because of regulations. America allows a lot more like a corn syrup or whatever, so it would be made from more like natural sugars or whatever. So there is, we do call it like a Mexican Coke.
And that would be more prominent in LA as well, right? Because of it being where it is.
Probably because it's so close.
Mexican culture in there. And they have like, you know, tacos and Mexican food is big in LA, isn't it?
Sure.
So that feels right. But Mexican Coke is very sexy from my point of view. Okay, I'll say that as an English person because, like for a while you can now, they're quite expensive, but glass bottle Cokes weren't really a thing here. So the only time they brought them in now in the supermarkets, but it's like £6, £7 for 4 bottles, which you're going to drink about. You know what I mean? They're very expensive. But so the only time we used to get them when we were younger, before the last decade, was we'd go on holiday and it would be hot and you'd be boiling and you go into a bar in Spain or anywhere like that and you would get this glass bottle of Coke. And it might, for some reason, glass bottle of Coke tastes better than any Coke you can get anywhere else. I don't know if it's something to do, maybe it's just psychological because you usually have it on a holiday, but to me it tastes better. I buy them, I just bought 20 for the summer. I'm like, it's getting hot. I bought a bulk order of like glass bottle of Coke because I fucking love glass bottle of Coke. Like, I try not to drink Coke. Glass bottle Coke Zero I get, but I try not to drink Coke because it's so bad. But in the summer, I allow like a glass bottle on a hot day. You can't
one a week,
Coke. So for me, and maybe that and Alex as well, it's a sexy thing because it's seen as sun and fun and it's hot and you're having this spot. And there used to be this advert on TV in the 90s when we would have been kids and Alex would hear, and it's this sexy woman drinking from a glass bottle of Coke and all the conditions. So that plays into a lot of stuff that maybe you don't have. I was wondering.
Well, these are the lines that wrapped her lips around a Mexican Coke makes you wish that you were the bottle. It just doesn't feel like Alex, man. It's almost borders on that like My Propeller territory where everyone like he's swearing like, oh no, it's not, ha 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 ha. But it's just like come on, like it just doesn't feel like Alex to me, man. It doesn't.
See, the crushed bundle of love one, I don't mind like overtly sexual overtly.
Yeah, it's not
Maybe
even
makes me
that it's sexual, because he has made, innuendos before, but it feels so basic to me. I don't know. It doesn't feel like Alex Turner. It doesn't feel like Alex Turner really writing lines. I don't know.
I suppose, but it is a little bit, if I can say, a little bit hypocritical, because you're saying it feels a bit basic, but then some of the other lines that you didn't like, that were quite a bit more complicated, I had another spin on them, you didn't like either. So can't have it both ways.
I mean, but I also said that I thought he was trying. Like, it's almost like he's trying to be sexy, which that's one of the magics of Alex's lyrics, is we talk about how he can take a line and make it feel so effortless. And so much of these lines to me do not feel effortless. They feel like he is really trying to be sexy, and he's really trying to push the space metaphor. It doesn't feel like an effortless Alex writing session to me.
Yeah, I really don't, because I think he's brought something personal. I think it's in his head, like, that he has seen it. I think you got to put the content in Ariel. He's probably seen her, and it's a memory that he has. I do think it's a real thing. I don't think he's making it up.
I think it's real.
And maybe there is a part of that with my explanation about Coke and the bottle and that, and that because I'm English and it is a rare thing here, and it was something that we associated with other things. Maybe that is why I come at it without that thought, because I have learned experience and history that's similar to them, and it's seen as this kind of sexy thing. And you could also say if a Mexican Coke is sweeter, he's saying, she's sweeter, as
but
well.
I mean, he's specifically saying, I wish I was the bottle. Like, literally anybody could write that. Alex Turner does not have to write that line. Anybody could make them say, a woman is drinking a Coke, I wish I was the bottle, and anybody could write that line. That's not an Alex line to me.
You've touched on something that I really don't like when people do, which is when people say that anyone could write that. It's like, I hate, like, people, like, why didn't you then? That's what I hate.
No,
like,
but people have. People have written lines just like this line. This is not a unique line where he's taking a phallic symbol and saying, I wish she would put her mouth on me like she's putting it on that thing. You don't think there's millions of lines exactly like this?
No, but it's different. It feels different. I really do think it does.
It is.
I've never thought about it from a penis point of view. You've just said that. I've never thought that once about a penis.
Really? You've never thought
honest
about
to
that?
Honest to God, I've never done that. I've
that is
thought about it more, because the next line is takes a sip of your soul. So I don't think he's talking about sex. I think he's talking about you wish that she would drink you in. She would drink your essence. Well, why does he say takes a sip of your soul then?
Oh no. I think so. Wraps her lips round a Mexican Coke, makes you wish that you were the bottle.
That you were the bottle, and takes a sip of your soul. It's all one line.
No.
What do you think takes a sip of your soul refers to then?
I think it's just pushing that space metaphor again. He's pushing it.
So you think sip has no link to drinking from a bottle of Coke? You think sip?
Oh, I do. But it's in the same way where he says, "Oh, my propeller." How could anyone think that has any kind of sexual connection? Where everybody looks back and says, "Like, okay, come on. Like, maybe you didn't mean it to be exclusively that, but like you can't just imagine that no one would think that might be sexual."
I guess I'm being completely honest and genuine when I say I've never thought about that as a sex thing. I've always thought about it as her.
But I find that surprising.
Around you, and have you used that phrase, drinking you in?
Sure,
drinking something in. Yeah, that's how I always thought of it, as a she's taking a sip of your soul, it's more like she's taking in your essence. I wish that she would take a bit of me. I wish that she would take a bit of me with her. Like,
I never heard this line that way. Never.
Wow. Maybe it takes a deep soul like me to
maybe. No,
it's all about sex, Justin.
It is. You said it was the sexiest song. You said it was.
Whoa. There's a difference between. Come on now, Justin. There's a difference between sexiness and sex.
Okay.
Beyonce, someone dancing is sexy doesn't mean it's sex. See what I'm saying? There is a subtle difference.
All right.
But yeah, honestly, I've genuinely never thought about it as a sexual line. I've just seen it as her drinking you in, taking a piece of
That's
you in.
interesting. We got to get the poll up. All right, is this a sexual line or not?
How many polls?
Weigh in, everyone weigh in, yeah.
But yeah, I've certainly never thought about the coke as a phallic image, so that's food for thought.
Interesting.
Yeah, which you kind of don't want to think about that, so I wish you hadn't said it, but there you go. It's yeah, I've never thought about that really being a phallic image, the coke. I've always just been caught up in the coke. But I think there is a little bit of you bring your experiences to it, and maybe there is a slight thing of, I do think a lot of that coke stuff I was talking about with how it is in the UK being different.
Yeah.
How we see those Mexicans, glass bottle cokes is possibly being brought into that. But yeah, I like that, and it sounds like this is a line that could be so cheesy, but I think they nail it and get it work, because they're saying when she takes a sip of your soul, it sounds like, and then they do the solo,
the guitar solo, yeah.
And so if that solo didn't make sense with that line, then it completely wouldn't work. But I think they completely get the guitar tone and style right, so that you understand what he means by that, and it becomes psychedelic, right? That idea of, you get that a lot in songs where the woman is transcending or whatever, and then you get this kind of psychedelic music, and they've just played on that. And I think if you get that wrong, then you're fucked. But if you get that tone right, then no one even barely thinks about it or notices.
Yeah, I think they do. Yeah, I'll give it. Yeah, I think they nailed the tone of. Yeah.
And they do that. They have done that before, and they'll do it again. They did, another semitone, and the song goes up a semitone. They're not many kind of lyrics matching the solo. But then we just get, obviously, the repeat of the lyrics. I do like the way they use those lines at the end, though, for the end and then the stop. I like the last line being before. I like that. But yeah. Very different opinions there on the lyrics.
Very different thoughts, too. I thought this was going to be very straightforward.
No, so
whether we liked it or not, I thought it was going to be very straightforward, yeah.
Yeah, very, a lot of the different opinions on a lot of the lines, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we found out something new about the Helter Skelter. So who says this isn't a challenging and debate-worthy and interesting and factual... No, podcast, I was going to say.
Oh, podcast.
I was blowing our own trumpet. But if I say blowing our own trumpet to you, you're going to think I'm talking about dicks and wanting to suck myself off, Justin. So I'm scared of saying it now. I have to get a psychiatrist in here. But shall we listen to the John Kennedy and hear what the band thought about this song themselves?
Yeah,
that's going to be
absolutely.
interesting, isn't it? So let's do that now.
Too much to discuss over a bucket of balls.
Arabella is the next song, and this also starts off like an R&B number, but what I like is that it switches to Black Sabbath's War Pigs, and the transition is seamless. It's fantastic, the way you do it. And so it's bringing those two ends. It's like your Aaliyah and Sabbath interests joined together as one.
Which they sort of make perfect sense in a way. I think the colours from those two rainbows seem to blend quite nicely. Like, just, I don't know. Yeah, but you're right. It's the two ends of the record. I suppose they do kind of come together on this. On Arabella, yeah.
Because on Are You Mine, I mean, there's a little taste of Matt's drumming where you kind of do some more kind of rolling beats and kind of let loose a bit. But that's about the only place on the record, And in the same way that the big riffs are few and far between, but they just suddenly emerge in Arabella, just a tad,
just to show that we're still.
Yeah. Because I mean, I guess they're in. There's so many guitars on the record. It's just, I guess they're processed a little bit different way, like we perhaps manipulated the instrument like differently, but there's probably more guitars on here like than ever, but it's just there's like a space in it. It's not always kind of like a kind of power chord or something.
Yeah,
I guess that's probably the Arabella's the only moment, I guess, where you get that kind of thing, because I guess we've sort of done plenty of that. It's kind of like we're trying to. There's something we were sort of chasing something else this time,
Yeah.
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 I think it's even in the set, like, if I don't know how into it you want to get, but like, even in the kind of solos, for instance, I was trying to get away from just doing like wah, fuzz kind of wah, that I've been doing a lot recently. So there was like I kind of turned the fuzz off for a bit and sort of went for like a cleaner with a bit of like phase thing. I don't know, that seemed to, you got to play it differently then or something. Like, we just trying to move on, you know.
Yeah. Do you think touring with the Black Keys had any influence on you? Because it seems to me that they combine these different elements in their own special way, but they kind of experiment with guitar sounds in a way that you wouldn't think obvious. You think of them as, a garage rock duo, but they're much more than that, aren't they? And the way they use space in the last few albums is quite interesting.
Oh, they're very clever boys, aren't they? Yeah. No, I mean, they just can write hits now, apparently, as well. Like, that's the one, they've definitely got that over the Monkees at this point. But yeah, I think he's a terrific guitar player, but I suppose he's quite traditional with like the way he plays and that. Oh, Dan. But I mean, we've been long-time fans of them and we're delighted to be on that tour. So, but I don't know if it had a massive influence on the record, like, to be quite honest. I don't. It's I don't know. It did make me consider getting a disco ball for the live show. So.
Are you any closer to that?
A little bit. There. We got some little ones for Glastonbury,
Disco dish. That's what we've got.
Mirror ball. Yeah, disco dish.
Which seems an appropriate phrase to enter the world of Arabella.
Yeah, man.
This is it. Arabella, Arctic Monkey.
Too much to discuss over a bucket of balls.
Well.
Little preview there.
Yeah, the mirror ball there, getting a little nod. The future will beckon. To be fair, a good 9 years after.
It goes to show how long they hold on to ideas, though. Good God.
Yeah. So the mirror ball was always there, waiting to come out. I know I like they touched a lot about what we were talking about in that, actually, didn't it, with the mirroring of the two things and how they want the guitar tones to be different and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. The Black Keys influence, although they deny it, but that's what he's right. The talent of the Black Keys to do the kind of blues rock and then do the hip hop and then Mars stuff and then also suddenly start writing hits like Lonely Boy and Gold on the Ceiling, stuff like that is pretty incredible to do that. Although Arctic Monkeys is like bands that can do stuff late on in their careers, not all at the beginning. But very interesting discussion from them there. And you disagreed with everything they said.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
No, I mean, especially like the music, the blending and stuff. I don't know. I don't know if I would have a different opinion than I don't know. The War Pigs thing bothers me more now, but I guess I always felt that way. So yeah, I will say though, that watching live clips, we'll watch it again too. Alex doesn't play guitar during most of the song. He only picks it up for the bridge. So it really feels like a thing where it feels like a Jamie thing because he's the only one playing guitar. So when it's kind of fair,
we don't know what goes on in the studio.
Sure, yeah. So it does kind of feel like a bit of a Jamie thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. We've always said that, hasn't it? That there's little guitar bits that are Jamie's thing. But I guess we don't know in the studio who's doing them, so we just have to kind of guess that the live performance matches the one. To be honest, I was always shocked that they managed to pull off Arabella with one guitar for the War Pigs bit, like that they didn't need him and Alex doing the same thing to give it a bit of volume, but they don't. It works live. Yeah. Interesting. But we are at the part of the show, and because I was spent all last night cheering about Tottenham winning the Europa League, so my voice is starting to get raspy at the back of my throat. So I don't think I'll have many legs left in it. So let's get to our favourite lyric, if you've got any.
Oh yeah.
Too busy with the mind on clever lines.
I think because it's from the beginning, I've always cited this thing of him taking a line that most people would put simply and then twisting it into a clever metaphor. I've always used it as an example, and because it brought up a good bit of information on this show today, I'm going to go with "and a helter-skelter round her little finger, and I ride it endlessly." No, I think that's the best. I just think it's the one that stays in my mind a lot.
Yeah, and I picked another one that we both brought up and liked a lot. It was it's much less picturesque without her catching the light. The horizon tries, but it's just not as kind on the eyes. And I made a note, but I didn't mention it because our discussion got so in depth. But the horizon tries, but it's just not as kind on the eyes. Like that's just a really good run. Like he's just a really good run there. So
something NME put, wasn't it, about him finding rhymes in the middle of songs that other songwriters wouldn't, wasn't it? That's pretty cool. And now let's talk about the rest of the band.
Mad sounds in your ears, they make you get up and dance, they make you get up.
I think if you're asking me for a moment, a very musical actual moment of the song, then I would say the solo. I think is great.
Okay.
But if you're asking me for, it's interesting because you didn't. But if you're asking me for which instrument wins the song, I would actually say the bass. Even though it was simple, I think it just nails what it needs to do, and it sounds great. But shout out to Help as always, obviously.
I am going to go with the guitar stuff, specifically in the verses. Like, I think they're like just all the little pieces coming together. I think I assume that maybe Jamie's putting these little things together, but actually, that's probably my favorite part of the song. Like, it's just a cool little piece. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool and different. You don't really hear that a lot from bands, do you, either? So it's quite original. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Honestly, to be honest, I quite like it all musically, even though there's nothing that like is insanely good. You know, it just all I like it as of a piece, you might say, which I think has been a common theme so far. It's been hard to kind of decipher the best because everyone's there's no standout performer in every song. It's just like everyone's doing something, you know. So and that could change. That could change in the coming weeks. But I don't have any hot takes because we kind of covered them in the episode, and I feel like the whole episode's been a series of hot takes, right? That's kind of
I know this is just the hot take episode.
The hot take episode. So I feel like we don't need to because kind of we the two that I had we definitely covered multiple times throughout the song. So let's get to the part of the show where I introduce the next track that we'll be doing with the help of AI.
You push the button and we'll do the rest.
I Want It All sounds like a lipstick-smeared postcard from a cheap desert motel, where the neon buzzes louder than your thoughts and the minibar's already been raided. It's sequins in the sheets, glitter on your bruises, and mascara tears that glisten like stardust. This track is drunk on nostalgia and laced with yearning. Part Ziggy Stardust breakdown, part country slick swagger. It crawls out of a velvet-lined dive bar jukebox, dragging behind it the scent of perfume, burnt matches, and a night that ended too soon. You can practically see the heartbreaker, a space-age cowgirl in snakeskin boots and a rhinestone soul, already halfway gone before the second verse hits. Turner's voice slurs like a man remembering the best mistake he ever made. Equal parts swagger and surrender, high on memory and half measures. There's shoo-wop backing vocals like ghosts from a glittering drenched past, echoing down motel hallways and across empty highways lit only by the glow of missed chances. This isn't just about desire, it's about burning the whole love down and still asking for more. More drama, more danger, more delirium. Because some romances aren't meant to last, they're meant to explode. And baby, he wants it all. Ooh.
Nice.
Well, I'm very intrigued to hear what you're going to say next week after this week. Very interesting.
Watch, I'm going to love I Want It All, and you're going to be confused.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not someone that hates it, to be honest. There's actually a specific part of it that's one of my favorite parts on the album, actually. So it's quite interesting. I don't think the songs, we'll get into next week, but I don't think obviously the song's like one of the best on the album, but there's a part of it that I think is one of the best bits on the album. But we will be discussing that
next
week. So we're back next week. But if you do want to subscribe, Arctic Monkey is at patreon.com/Arctic Monkeys, and you'll be able to come to our pre-show now, where we're going to watch that full Austin City Limits performance with the War Pigs in there, and then we'll be doing a segment, Justin, that's called
It's nothing on the early stuff where we'll be comparing Arabella to earlier tracks from the Arctic Monkeys catalog.
And Justin brings that to me as a surprise, so I'm very intrigued after his thoughts on the song, what he's going to link it to. So I'm up for that. So come join us.
That are the worst on the album. No,
I think it's a great addition to the post show for people, so I would definitely subscribe. Yeah. And also next week we'll be in the pre-show. If you do become a subscriber, we'll be talking about T-Rex album Electric Warrior to link that to the glam rock anthem that is I Want It All. So let's get into the post show. But for everyone else, we will see you next week.
See you next week. Thanks for listening. Don't Believe the Hype is hosted and produced weekly by Justin Toole and Dan Holt. The music used in the titles is royalty-free music courtesy of Les FM. Don't forget to subscribe on your podcast player of choice to be notified every Wednesday when a new episode is released. Sign up with us on Patreon to get exclusive content including coverage of The Last Shadow Puppets, Arctic Monkeys adjacent album reviews, and concert watch-alongs. If you want to help us out further, be sure to like and review to help make us more visible to like-minded souls. We'll see you next week with more of the same.